Hey guys, welcome back to Monday Warfare, The Battles Within. We're at episode 18 now. We're taking a look at the end of April and the beginning of May in 1996. I'm your host, Ray Russell. Joining me, Steve Eckstat, for this venture into May of 1996. Steve, welcome back to Monday Warfare.
Yeah, man, we're finally back at it. It's been a while.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the summer off. We're heading back into this thing. We're not too far off from Nitro going to 2 hours. Which at that point, we're going to do one episode of Raw, one episode of Nitro, every episode of Monday Warfare so that we can give the proper attention to what's going on in the battle, because it really becomes a real battle at that point. But for right now, it's still 1 hour of Nitro, 1 hour of Raw. So for the time being, it's 2 episodes of Nitro, 2 episodes of Raw per episode here of Monday Warfare. And we're kicking things off with April 26th, Steve. But before we do, we're going to get into, obviously, we typically cover some of the basic news and notes and things in WCW at this time. But it's great to be back. It's great to talk about the war. The war is really, it's coming upon us, if you know what I'm saying.
It's getting here. Yeah. It's very close to the entire landscape of wrestling changing forever. We're not far off from that.
That's right. And we got a few pieces of news and notes. And lucky you, Steve, we're back just in time. No Hulk Hogan. He's finally gone.
Yes.
Months and months of this guy putting himself over, beating up 46 people. No selling chairs while he beats guys up. No selling finishers of not just longtime wrestlers like Ric Flair, but no selling finishers to guys like the Giant popping up, beating them up, clearing the ring. It's Hulk Hogan to the rescue everywhere we turn around. And supposedly, DeMeltz claims he's gone till August. We know that's a little bit off, but we won't get into that just yet. Hulk Hogan is gone for the time being, though, which is a good thing. He's off to film a movie. Supposedly, Hogan said he will do no more jobs, Steve, when he comes back. No more jobs for the Hulkster. What do you make of that?
It's no lie. But no, it is what it is. It's like he's jobbed enough, and he's
can you count on one hand? If you were an animal that had like three fingers, can you count on one hand how many fucking jobs he's done? Because I can't. I don't know what he's even referring to. No more jobs. I did do that one job to Arn Anderson by whatever the hell that was, but fuck that. No more jobs.
Right.
By the Hulkster.
I think he's looked pretty weak compared to what we're used to.
Oh, really? I must have misunderstood those episodes where he was selling the
Giant. Real quick.
He knew he was leaving to film a movie. He went in that day and changed the script on Nitro. Yes. He said, "No, you know what? The Giant was supposed to leave me laying. I was supposed to get stretchered out, and that explains me leaving the company for a couple months." Makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, he's done it in the past in the WWF to go make movies and other things like that, but not here in WCW. No. He comes in, he says, "You know what? I changed my mind. The Giant's not going to even stretcher me. He's not even going to lay me out. I'm going to beat his ass, Ric Flair's ass, Arn Anderson's ass, Kevin Sullivan's ass, and pretty much anybody else I feel like on the way out of the company here for a couple months." And that's Hulk Hogan. But you know what he said after all that? No more jobs, brother.
I don't know, man.
But the good news is he's gone, Steve.
I'm a Hogan guy.
I'm not.
But it's hard for me to defend this. But to be fair, it's been a long time since we've watched some of this stuff, and the big thing is that it just kind of got very stale, and it's just like, here we go again. What's Hogan going to do this time? So it seemed like one thing after another. So this is refreshing that he's gone. No more jobs when he gets back, whether he's been doing jobs or not. He wasn't lying if that was said, because I'm trying to think of
Luger.
The first time he jobs. That's the first time he jobs?
Well, off the top of my head, I can remember him jobbing a Luger. I can't say that for fact.
I'm trying to think.
That's not too far away, right? I'm trying to think
of like the Luger's the 97.
Oh, is that Oh, I'm sorry. I was pegging that in 96.
No, because it's the Giant and Hogan at Hog Wild.
Yeah.
And then
that seemed too early. You're right.
Or Luger and Hogan is Road Wild.
Right. You're right.
I'm trying to think. I don't remember Starrcade. I don't know. Like, we'll figure it out when we get there, clearly. But
surely, brother.
He wasn't lying.
No, and before we get going, I just want to remind everybody to head over to our Patreon account, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. 14 tiers there, but the favorite tier of mine is the All Access tier. Only $5, Steve. The Watch Along series is part of that All Access tier. at $5. And you guys are going to hear us cover Saturday night's main events, Clash of the Champions, and of course, WCW and WWF main events here from the Monday Night War era, which has been quite a bit of fun so far, the good and the bad.
No, definitely a great deal. And also, we'll be going back and throwing on WrestleMania 12, In Your House, Good Friends, Slamboree 96.
Yes, that's all. Those are all coming up in the next week or two. So it's a perfect time to join our Patreon.com/WrestleCopia account, because that all access tier will get you all those shows Steve just said. That's Slamboree 96, WrestleMania 12, In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies, but also shows from the Wrestling Memory Grenade. Too. Yeah, we're in WWF 1993 in the Grenade right now. We're going to be doing USA specials, hopefully some handhelds in the future, maybe even some European tour shows. So a lot of fun going on. March to WrestleMania 9 going up within the week. So check that out. That's Bam Bam and Undertaker, Macho Man, Yokozuna. Good stuff all around. So this is the time to sign up for Patreon here with the WrestleCopia brand. But for right now, we're going to continue on with this episode of Monday Warfare. We're going to talk Brian Pillman. We talked a lot about his accident and his injury in the last episode or two of the Monday Warfare show. But this week, DeMeltz announces that Brian Pillman had plastic surgery on his face back on April 25th and was released from the hospital the next day. He had 4 steel plates put in his face, Bruce Beefcake style. Well, he has one more operation to go, Steve, to remove the steel rod that was put into his ankle in his first ankle operation. Obviously, we know he has ankle troubles going forward and can't really move the foot from here forward in his wrestling career.
Yeah, that what was that, a Humvee accident?
Yeah. He flew out of it, yeah.
That pretty much ruined his career to the point where he was never the same. Obviously, the gimmick and the promos and things like that, he could sell you to the arena and get you to get invested in his matches, but the matches just didn't deliver on a level that we were you would expect from a Brian Pillman. But then again, his matches in WCW were going south anyway.
Right. Prior
to the injury, he started.
He was putting on weight, not in a negative way, but in a non Brian Pillman way. Like he couldn't do the Brian Pillman style we were used to. Is more of a normal, typical wrestler at that point. There was no more flashy air Pillmans and things like that going on with Brian. But that kind of changes with the gimmick too. But it's just unfortunate. At this time, there was no observer coming to my house on a weekly basis. There was internet, but I didn't get a lot of Brian Pillman information at this point on the internet. So, but it was still blatantly obvious to me, it's just a teenage fan at this point, that he couldn't go like he used to. So even though he could back it up with the angles and the promos, I didn't see him really getting that revenge or covering his ass as far as what he's promising. So it really hurt his character overall. The only thing that would make up for that was the Pillman 9mm gimmick. But other than that, Brian Pillman from this point forward, great character, but he couldn't back it up in the ring anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, it just wasn't there. And I think that's part of the reason for his downfall, is he could never really accept it, and he never gave the ankle time enough to heal. If he would have done that, he probably. That's that old school mentality, though, Steve. This is he's not getting guaranteed contracts here. I mean, not full guaranteed contracts. Certainly not in 1996. So you're just you're trotting out there the way you are because you're trying to make a buck. I mean, and look what it did to Paul Orndorff back in 86, 87. I mean, he was never the same. I mean, he continued to wrestle for a very long time after that, but he was still never the same. Yeah.
So we go on with the news here. We're going to talk just a little bit about Eric Bischoff and the Johnny B. Bad situation at this point. We know Johnny B. Bad left WCW on not so good terms. He joined the WWF, got a hell of a payday from Vince McMahon, who saw him as a top-tier player coming in. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work out that way. Eric Bischoff responds to some of the comments that Johnny B. Bad said, or Mark Marrow has said, since leaving the company. Eric Bischoff says in an interview with Mike Mooneyham for the Wrestling Observer hotline, this is pre-internet, guys, so it's the Wrestling Observer hotline, and the Charleston Post-Courier, that it was an outright lie regarding Johnny B. Bad's claim that after his contract expired, he was only making $150 per match. Bischoff says, "We have never, ever paid Johnny $150. He knows it, and if it gets to it, I can supply copies of the checks to prove it. His contract was up. He was given a new contract, and he was being paid the same rate under his old contract. There was no change in his compensation. He's an emotional guy, and he may have meant something else rather than what he said. So Bischoff's kind of trying to defend Johnny there a little bit, or Mark Mero there just a little bit, but then he goes on. He says, the problem with Johnny was that he's lazy and he's spoiled. And he didn't want to leave home. He didn't want to do things that the rest of the talent were doing, like Sting, Lex Luger, Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage. I can see Hulk Hogan doing whatever they told him. And that's promote the business. Now, Mero, Johnny, spent a lot of time talking in schools and churches and youth groups. And that's cool, says Bischoff. I've even gone to one or two of those shows with Johnny. I'm very supportive of that. But the reality is, and this is business talking, that's something Johnny wanted to do, and it made him feel good about himself. That didn't necessarily translate to major public relation opportunities for WCW. They didn't hurt us, and intangible, it helps us. Bischoff was later critical of Mero's leaving in regard to him talking about how important his family was and his daughter are to Johnny B. Bad and obviously Rena Mero, Sable at the time. How Mero claimed that his daughter's reactions made them drop the Kimberly angle where Johnny B. Bad had picked up Kimberly as his valet, bringing up that WWF did an angle with Rena Mero, Sable, where she started out with Triple H and she would end up jumping over to Johnny B. Bad, or Mark Mero, if you will. Sorry, flipping names here, but basically it led to Rena Mero being on the road as a traveling wife of Mark Mero, his new valet in his corner. So it's interesting here. Bischoff kind of defending the situation like, well, Johnny's a passionate guy. Maybe he misspoke accidentally. And then the next sentence is he's lazy and is spoiled. So it's Bischoff being Bischoff.
Well, I don't buy that at all, because when we was doing those pay-per-views and stuff for Patreon, we would talk about how Johnny B. Bad and DDP were coming up with new moves like every single match. It seemed like they were really going out there and trying to do better than the last time they were out there. So to call him lazy is a reach, because he was one of those guys that stood out and actually looked different and wasn't just going through the motions like almost everybody on top in WCW.
Well, I think there's two different kinds of lazy. There's Hulk Hogan lazy, where you can make millions, brother, right? And not have to do shit in the ring. And then there's Bischoff's lazy, which is you can do whatever the hell you want in the ring. He's talking about lazy promotional wise, business wise.
He missed one event,
right?
And Bischoff didn't like it. And then he's trying to, if those are Bischoff's words, well, look at his wife. She's in an angle with another man. No, it made sense to quickly get his wife on his side by Hunter treating him like shit. And you put him in a pretty high, a pretty elevated feud as soon as he comes in. So it's not apples to apples there. And yeah, he may be traveling more, but he's actually with his wife, and they could probably bring his daughter on the road with them if they wanted to for certain periods, when school's out or whatever the case may be. So it seems like a little bit better situation for Mero all around being in WWF initially. Right. It falls apart, but I mean, if I could take the options of staying at WCW and all this other crap and be away from my family, or go to WWF and bring my wife with me, I'm thinking of taking my wife with me to WWF and getting the money.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight though, I don't know where the best decision lies in that. Maybe he would have, stuck around WCW longer and got
Well, he wasn't going anywhere in WCW either, especially with everybody coming in. He would have just been further down the card.
What the hell is that?
It's your boy.
Is that Jaws? No, you know what that is? I know what that is. Holy shit. That's the Shark. That's Shark John Tenta. Apparently, we reported before that they severed his contract. They were cutting contracts, getting rid of the fat. No disrespect. Yeah, exactly. His contract was cut, was John Tenta's, but the Shark is apparently sticking around, which I kind of figured because I remembered, what was coming up still. I don't know if he wished he had stuck around, probably because he was getting paid for it, but John Tenta's going to stick around, but he's no longer under contract with WCW, so it's going to be a per appearance basis. So even though the Shark was cut, I'm not a shark. not a fish. We're going to see John Tenta stay around here at least for a couple more months. Oh my God. Just thinking about what's to come.
I don't know if it's a good thing like you said. Yeah, what's to come is bad.
I don't know what he gets paid for it. Maybe it's worth it financially.
Hopefully.
Who am I to say?
Hopefully.
We're going to move on now to WCW Monday Nitro, April 29th, 1996, Albany, Georgia. This Nitro is not live, though, Steve. It's taped last week, April 22nd. And there's a time change on the show. Instead of Nitro kicking off at 8:55 to screw with Raw, it's actually 7 p.m. due to the NBA playoffs. So Nitro starting off pretty damn early. And by the end of the show, I'm going to tell you, I think this is the episode. I'm going to see what's on here yet, but I believe this is the episode. I didn't realize Nitro changed times. So I missed it initially when it first aired. And I was really pissed off based on one of the matches on this show, which we'll get to in a little bit. So they made the call that Nitro wouldn't be held live because Eric Bischoff and several other of the WCW higher-ups and some of the top wrestlers were actually in Japan at this point for a New Japan Tokyo Dome show the same exact night. So they made the call to tape this back on the 22nd episode of Nitro for the 29th. And lucky us, Steve, no Hulk Hogan, as we've already announced. So there's an episode of Nitro, no Hulk Hogan. They're going to have to pivot and actually put other guys over. And as we kick off the show, it's Bischoff, Bobby Heenan, and Steve McMichael with Macho Pepe right here in front of the front and center. Aha! And they're hard selling the Slamboree pay-per-view coming up. The matches, they're going to announce them all night. They hard sell them the entire show. Typically, that's a good thing, Steve, when you're putting over your pay-per-view matches. Unfortunately, considering this pay-per-view, probably not a good idea.
Yeah, definitely not. We'll talk about it once they start announcing some, but
sure.
Pretty terrible. Just a terrible idea for a pay-per-view, especially when you're in the middle of a war. I will say it's kind of nice that they're actually shilling a pay-per-view instead of shilling Hulk Hogan. Hogan's not there, so they're not talking about him 24/7.
Right, and we announced a lot of those dump truck matches on the last episode of Monday Warfare, so you guys may already have a clue of some of the things to come. We know there's a lot of very fake matches coming up in that show as far as the Lethal Lottery is concerned. A lot of enemies facing each other, a lot of enemies teaming, a lot of friends and brothers facing each other. It's very lazy put together, but we have plenty of time to talk about that. We'll talk about Nitro right now. Tag team champions Sting and Lex Luger to the ring to take on number one contenders Harlem Heat, Steve. It's a rematch from WCW Saturday Night where Jimmy Hart threw a towel in and the referee thought it was for the Harlem Heat, unfortunately causing the Heat to lose the match, so they get the rematch here after they were screwed. The baby faces, I guess Luger's a baby face here, by de facto anyway, teaming with Sting. They dominate the first 5 minutes of the match going into the commercial break, but when we come back, Harlem Heat have full control of the Stinger. And the Heat get heat on Sting for the next several minutes. A double clothesline spot by Sting, though, allows him to hot tag to Lex Luger, who comes in with very shitty clotheslines, which I would expect nothing less of here in 1996. And the Harlem Heat toss Sting to the floor. They do manage to take over on Luger with a double team, and they hit the old wrecking ball, which we're doing 1993 WWF right now on the grade. Had we been doing 1993 WCW, you guys would know what the wrecking ball is via the wrecking crew. It's basically you throw the guy up over your shoulder, the other guy comes off the top with the double axe handle. It is what it is. I mean, I'm just describing what it was, Steve. Jimmy Hart, though, who manages Luger, but not Sting doesn't necessarily agree with it. So he's not always out there. But at this point, Jimmy Hart back to ringside, tosses the towel into Booker. He wants the referee to think Booker's throwing in the towel, but Booker waves it off. Uh-oh, sucker. He's not giving it up. Stevie Ray then grabs Jimmy Hart, presses him into the ring. Booker goes after Jimmy, but during the distraction, Sting schoolboys Booker T, and Sting and Luger get the pin 11 minutes into the match. So now Sting even taking advantage of Jimmy Hart's interference, which Sting was never cool with prior to this, and even here it leaves questions. Was Sting really cool with what happened? He was just taking advantage of the situation. It's funny, we go back to the beginning where Sting and Luger have had issues now for, my God, 8 or 9 months, and you said, this lasts all the way till the NWO. I didn't necessarily believe you, Steve. I didn't remember them pulling this shit off every single week for fucking like 8 months, but they're still working on it here, and we're getting pretty damn close to the NWO. So even Sting taking advantage here, schoolboy, while Booker T is going after Jimmy Hart. So Sting's been really adamant about Luger not using Jimmy Hart. And here Sting takes advantage this time. He's not necessarily doing it on purpose. And I did air quotes there, by the way. But he does it.
Right, yeah. I thought this was a good match.
Solid TV match.
Yeah, solid TV match. Booker T, like, he really sticks out. He's really good. You can see it here. He had an awesome sidekick that was very well done. But this stuff with Sting and Luger continues, man. I honestly, I don't think it stops until Bash at the Beach is when it stops. And that's one of the bad things with the NWO is that there's never a payoff here, which kind of stinks.
Yeah, we talk about who drove the limo, the old crash, or who raised the briefcase during the old the Vince King of the Ring. Yeah, absolutely. But nobody really talks a lot about whatever happened to that Sting and Luger issue. Was Luger really crooked? It just kind of disappears. And it's these other stories were like one-offs, right? It's like people go, what happened? Who did this? Who was that driver? Who was the guy that raised the briefcase? This went on for like 8 months. Or 9 months, and then there's no payoff, and nobody ever questions, was Luger really crooked, or was he like screwing Sting, or was he really Sting's friend and he's just aloof? So it's never really explained, and nobody ever questions what happens. But I
don't think people remember it because it did last so long. Like, it went months and months and months, and it's not like they're doing similar stuff, but it's not the exact same thing every week. So it's nice, and they even do something different next week. Some of the better booking as far as long term storytelling, but again, there's no payoff, so it kind of nobody really remembers it. But
you kind of have to wonder: is it long term because they have no idea where they're going, so they just keep going? Come up with something else.
Possible. It's definitely possible. But even on commentary, they do a great job of Bischoff will say one thing. Mongo will say something. Heenan will say something different. So they're all confused. Like, none of them really know for sure what's going on. And we'll talk about it on the next episode, not the next episode of the Warfare show, but next week's episode of Nitro.
Right.
What happens there. Even Bischoff starting to think a little bit that, Luger would never do that. Yeah, a lot of weird stuff going on. Yeah. And again, I think it all goes back to what you just said. They have no clue where they want to go with it. So let's just keep it going.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
The show also goes on, and this is a hell of a surprise. It was the Steiner brothers taking on Fire and Ice. That's Scott Norton and Ice Train. We learned that Fire and Ice will team up in the Lethal Lottery. What luck that is, Steve. Meanwhile, the Steiner brothers will face each other in the Lethal Lottery part of Slamboree. I wrote fake. I mean, I could see one of these things happening, but both. And then you have Public Enemy teaming up, Savage and Flair teaming up, Regal and Finlay initially teaming up, and then we'll get to that when we get to it. This is the laziest booking I've ever seen, right? I mean, ever.
Like, before you can watch them, the Battle Bowls, like a Starrcade 91, teams are just completely random. They're just
you do get Scott versus Rick, and you do get Michael Hayes versus Jimmy Garvin. They don't really play it up because it's very short term in the ring against each other, but it's so few and far between that you're like, oh wow, yeah, I kind of like that. That's good shit.
But this is like every match,
every team,
every team is tied together somehow.
Yeah, it's
just like, it's ridiculous. Like Macho and Savage against Arn Anderson and Eddie Guerrero. Like, what are the odds those four people get picked to make a match? Like, that's impossible. So, just whatever.
So we got the Steiners here taking on Scott Norton and Ice Train. You may think, well, that's kind of sounds like a train wreck, but it's not at all. Very surprising here. Ice Train actually looking good here. Does a leapfrog, a power slam. Good timing. In fact, the best timing I've ever seen Ice Train have in the ring. And this guy's been on and off with the company going back to at least 1993. And then, oh my gosh, Train eats a German suplex. Oh my God, almost a released German from Rick Steiner on Ice Train. These guys are too big. All four of these guys are too big to be taking some of the moves they all take during this match. Scotty comes in with an overhead belly to belly on Scott Norton. Scott Norton taking overhead belly to belly during the match. Norton takes over. He catches Scotty off the top rope, picks him up into a press slam and walks around with him. How many guys do you see walk around with Scott Steiner over their head? Press slam Scott Steiner. Then he walks through him. Scott Norton doesn't even try to run with these clotheslines. It's hilarious. He walks into Scott Steiner with these clotheslines, yet they're still believable, Steve. If there was ever a human being on earth that could walk into you with a clothesline and you take a bump, it's Scott Norton. It looked real.
Oh, yeah.
To me, damn it.
Yeah. This match was, like you said, going in on that, this is going to be a train wreck, but it wasn't, man. They beat the shit out of each other. They were dumping them. Like I put in my notes, the Steiners could suplex anyone. They do it to release German on Ice Train. Norton eats the overhead belly,
yeah.
And it's just like as long as their opponent is cool with it, they'll suplex you. Because you're not just going to take Scott Norton and say you're going, like, that's it. So
no, and I have that in my notes here. Yeah, about these guys. So it's what made the match successful for what it was. Because the match goes on, Scott Steiner catches Scott Norton in a hot shot, then makes the hot tag to brother Rick. And I love this. Rick Steiner shoots Norton off the ropes, tries a spinning elbow, and bounces off Scott Norton. Rick Steiner is bouncing off a guy. I mean, I just loved it. Norton's just standing there and Rick Steiner bounces off. It was just great stuff from the beginning. 4-way melee, all 4 guys in the ring. Ice Train nearly decapitates Scott Steiner with a big boot. And then Ice Train's turned to press slam Scotty. So Scott Steiner's taking press slams from Ice Train at this point. Scott Norton then clothesline. Well, first he clotheslined Scott Steiner. Very awkward, weird-looking situation. Clothesline Scott Steiner out of the ring. But behind their back, as those two are going at it, it's Rick Steiner with the Steiner line on Ice Train. Takes him down, makes the cover, picks up the win. 3 minutes and 22 seconds. I wrote, what a hoss fight. I mean, just wow. And this is where the important part. Kudos to the cooperation. Nobody had the ego here, Steve. Everybody was taking everybody's move. They were selling everybody's move. They came in there to have a good match. And I wrote, too short. 3 minutes and 22 seconds. They did all this. And Train actually hung with the other 3 guys. I couldn't believe it. I can't believe I'm saying this, but give me more of this, Steve.
Yeah, I'm with you. It felt like it was 5 or 6 minutes long.
Yeah.
There was so much action in that I didn't even realize it was that short, to be honest with you. That's surprising.
No, I didn't either. But when I went back and read the time, I was like 3 minutes and 20. Every move mattered. It was just 4 guys just beating the crap out of it. It was so good. I wish they'd given these guys like 8 minutes on a pay-per-view. Oh, tremendous.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
Great way to open a show.
Yeah.
But it just kind of stinks that Norton and Ice Train didn't get along, and Norton didn't want any part of it. If I remember in the Observer, I think he told Bischoff, "I'm leaving. I'll go back to Japan if this is what you're doing." So, it stinks because, like you said, Ice Train was getting pretty good at the point where he was hanging with these guys and looked fine.
Right.
So, it'd have been interesting to see what would have happened. And I think if they would have been able to keep them together a little bit longer, and Norton, when he joined the NWO, could have turned on him, and it would have meant something. But, it's unfortunate. But, yeah, I would have loved an 8.5, 9-minute match between these 4. That would have been excellent.
Oh, it would have been great.
And, good stuff.
And it comes down to cooperation. Everybody cooperated. Nobody had the ego. Yeah. They all took bumps from each other. It was great. Scotty was taking bumps from Ice Train, for God's sake. So,
that's key. I mean, people could have been dicks there. I'm like, I'm not selling your moves, but no, all 4 of them were more than willing to do it, and it worked, and it paid off. This is a damn good match.
It's promo time. Mean Gene Okerlund out with Ric Flair, Leather Liz, and Woman. And the aisle way, Ric Flair isn't worried about his match with the Giant tonight. Ric Flair is the WCW champion, by the way, Steve. He's defending the title here tonight against the Giant. Flair then taunts Savage, using Liz as his weapon there. They, too, will team at Slamboree. More fake, because Macho Man and Ric Flair teaming up at Slamboree. Wow, you don't get much more fake. If that was literally, if you'd booked the entire pay-per-view, and that was your story, Savage and Flair are a team, you could have got away with that all night long.
Yeah.
Based on their feud, based on the heat. Imagine the Mega Powers exploding, and then there's a lethal lottery, and Hogan and Savage have to team. You're going to get away with that all night, Steve. But when the Steiners are facing each other, and the Public Enemy are teaming, and Fire Ice are teaming, and Regal and Finlay are teaming, and all this other shit. Yeah, it's
Hawk and Animal are facing each other.
Right? Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, that's another big one. Yeah, come on, man. It's just we're going to get into that on our Patreon show when we cover Slamboree. I hate to keep dwelling on it here, but
I hate Slamboree 96.
It's one of the worst, no doubt.
It is the worst. I mean, I'd watch a WCW 2000 pay-per-view over that.
As the promo goes on, woman says the Giant is a small man in compared to the Nature Boy. Miss Elizabeth still trying to figure out how to be a heel here, basically what you could tell from her promo and her mannerisms out here. But it's the main event tonight. It's Ric Flair defending the title against the Giant. That's basically the story they're telling out here during the promo. And then, Steve, oh my gosh, it's our very first Blood Runs Cold vignette. Our world is about to change. Oh my gosh. DeMelt speculates that it's Hall and Nash on the way in. I wrote, silly Dave. Could you imagine if Hall and Nash were like Glacier and Ernest Miller, like Mortis or something? Hey, yo. Blood runs cold, man. So it's funny. DeMelt is speculating that blood runs cold with Hall and Nash, but this is our very first vignette of what would eventually become known as Glacier, and then all the other guys that follow. Speaking of 8 months, yes,
of build,
yes.
Oh my God, here we go.
Oh, what a match this is coming up here. It's Lord Steven Regal, yes, Lord Steven Regal, one of the classic wrestlers of the 90s and beyond, taking on the Belfast Bruiser, who you guys may know better nowadays is Fit Finlay, Dave Finlay. Finlay, he loves to fight. They're not in a wrestling ring, though, Steve. They're in a parking lot. This is a parking lot fight, is what it's billed as. There's some cars laying around. There's a guardrail with fans on the outside of it. The match starts right away coming out of commercial break, and they're in that parking lot, surrounded by those cars and the fans. Finlay boots a car window in. It looked like the old school 91 Ford Escort to me, without the hatchback. Anyway, I only know that because it was the first car I ever owned. But mine had a hatchback, so a little longer. Finlay grabs a cinder block because those are just laying around in parking lots and in cars and shit. Regal rubs Finlay's face in the block and then on the blacktop. So these guys are just really laying it into each other. I should point out at this point, these guys are two of the best technical wrestlers you've ever seen, especially Regal. But they're in a parking lot fighting, Steve. So Finlay comes back. He grabs a donut tire and a fender, falls off of one of the cars while they're fighting, uses those as a weapon because why not? He slams Regal on the hood of a truck. Regal comes back, does the same, winds up slamming Finlay on a truck. Elbow drops. They trade elbow drops in the truck because that's just what you do when a guy's laying on the hood of a truck, Steve. Finlay chokes Regal with a seatbelt, which Bischoff calls a safety strap for some reason. I don't know. Is it like medical facility with Vince McMahon? He's choking him with a safety strap. I don't know.
Did you hear the back leg round kick?
Yes, I did. Early on in the match, Bischoff calls a back leg round kick in the middle of a bar. Yes, parking lot. Yes, I did. I didn't write it down, but I did hear that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I was listening and I heard it and I'm like, are you shitting me? In a parking lot brawl, you get back leg round kick in? Come on, Eric. Come on.
I was writing so much, that's the only reason I didn't write that down. Because I wanted to type in, Bischoff says back leg round kick in the middle of a parking lot fight. Because what a fun. And the very next move is a slam on the hood of a car. So that's Eric Bischoff. So the match goes on. These guys are literally beating the crap. These guys, I should point out, Regal's been in the business, what is this, 96? So Regal's been in the business since he was like illegal, 14, 15, something like that. Regal's been in the business like 15 years by this point almost. So he's known Finlay all that time. These guys are friends. The better friends you are, the more you beat the shit out of each other. That's what these guys do out here. And it just continues. Finlay tries on purpose to punch his fist through a window. Lucky for him, it didn't break. We saw what happened when Goldberg broke a window. Regal tries the same thing. I think they were intending on this damn window getting broke on this car. They couldn't break it. Regal does a forearm or a backhand into the same window as hard as he possibly can, and it still doesn't break. So I'm just happy for them that it didn't at that point. Match goes on. Fireman's carry drops Regal across the guardrail, holding the fans back. Regal comes back on Finlay, sends Finlay into the truck bed in the back of a truck. The guys are now both bleeding as they both climb onto the top of the truck. Bischoff tells the cameraman to go wide, go wide. So I say boo to that. So it's clear not only Bischoff has some kind of production deal where he can tell people what to do and working the cameras at that point, but it's like, dude, they're bleeding. Let's see it on the TV. But yeah, they're both bleeding at this point. The cameras do go wide, and we get like faraway shots from here forward. Regal tosses Finlay into a car window, which does smash at that point. Finlay tries a tombstone on the blacktop, which luckily Steve Regal escapes. Regal tries his own pile driver on a car, but Finlay backchops Regal on top of the car. They fight a little more, and Regal finally nails the pile driver on top of the car to pick up the win. All of this, 6 minutes and 15 seconds. And as we go out of this into commercial, Bobby Heenan realizes, this is Bobby Heenan being Bobby Heenan. Hey, that's my rent-a-car. After, these guys beat the crap out of each other for 10 minutes on these cars. Right. So I'm not trying to take away from the match by that, but Bobby made me laugh at the end of the segment. But going back to the match, oh my God, these guys beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, they just beat the living hell out of each other. And I will say, I know it sucks that they had to pan out and get away from it because of the blood, but Bischoff towards the end was getting very uncomfortable with it. You could hear him, some of the commentary that he was making was this is getting hard to watch type deal. And so he's like, director or producer, we need to stay wide. If it gets any worse, we'll have to go wider, that sort of deal. So he was they ended up doing it, but I think he was also trying to sell up just the brutality of this match because they were busted pretty good. I think they broke maybe 2 or 3 windows. Right. 4 cars got destroyed. Hoods were destroyed. It's just not a very safe wrestling environment, clearly, but they made it work. And I remember this as a kid, and it's what the hell's a parking lot brawl? And then you watch it, and I'm like, man, that was awesome. They just beat the hell out of each other. And I think at that moment, I became a big fan of the Bruiser and Regal when I was a kid. This match was my selling point. Mm-hmm. I was never really smart enough to appreciate Regal for how good he was in the ring when I was a kid, but this match was man, I want to see more of this. This shit was awesome.
Yeah, I think I've told the story before with Regal swimming around in my cousin's pool, and I go, you know who my new favorite wrestler is, I think? Because Sting had been in WCW. Sting had been my favorite for certainly 90, 91, 92. And I go, I think it's Steve Regal. And he looks back at me and he goes, I was going to say the same thing. And I go, yeah. And it was because of his wrestling style. I really appreciate it from the time he broke into when Watts was running the company. So I was always a Regal fan, but this was different level. This is whoa, this is not Steve Regal wrestling. It's so weird, the dynamic too. They're both heels, yet Regal's kind of the baby face because Finlay's more of he's a nasty motherfucker, pardon my French. So you kind of baby face Regal here, but at the same time, it's just 2 bad guys. You take your pick, and they're beating the crap out of each other out there. I think I mentioned to you this on Skype at some point when we were conversating. It was like reading Marvel comics or something like that, and every once in a while, you get the villain, but then there's the villain of the villain. And so you got 2 bad guys going, and that was always a cool little classic fight you saw in one random comic every once in a while. And that's what this was here. It was take your pick. Do you like Regal, your long-standing villain, or do you like this new villain that came in to avenge, whatever. And these guys just beat the crap out of each other here. It was very entertaining. I almost thought it was the answer to WrestleMania 12, which had just recently happened between Piper and Goldust, because that was, half of that match was outside as well. I thought this was certainly better. I'm not going to take away the fact that Piper and Goldust did things that they weren't supposed to do, and they really beat the shit out of each other and risked life and limb, literally, to the point where Piper broke his hand. He got ran over for real when he wasn't supposed to. You put all that in there. I'm not questioning the manhood of those guys, but no. Entertainment-wise, this was a better product, I thought.
Yeah, it was just continuous. It was just a fight, whereas it felt like Goldust and Piper were trying to tell a story. It just started on the backlot brawl, and then it made its way inside, and I think the OJ chase stuff kind of diminishes the severity of what they did. Yeah. You remember that match for the OJ footage being spliced in, not necessarily.
And the lingerie at the end of it. And the
lingerie at the end, yeah. So it's not like you don't remember. like Piper getting run over by a car legit is like the third or fourth thing that you remember from that match, and that should be number one. Like this dude's in a fake wrestling environment, so to speak, and got hit by a car legit. Like so, like that should be the first thing that comes to your mind, not OJ footage and a dude in a thong and lingerie. But it is what it is. I will say this is like the follow up to what happened at Uncensored, where Regal got his face broke. That's why we had this one. But no, this was good stuff. I loved it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Finley's gone after this. This is the end of Finley's going back to Austria and Germany to work for Otto Vons after this for a little while. And we don't see Finley for quite a long time after this match, unfortunately.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see more.
Absolutely. After that, yeah, no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
Show goes on. It's WCW champion, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, with Woman and Miss Elizabeth in his corner, taking on the Giant. Ric Flair is still taunting Deborah McMichael and the crowd at ringside. My question is, Steve, why the fuck is she at ringside every single show all of a sudden? Mongo getting angry on commentary during the show, during the match. Eric Bischoff trying to calm him down. The Giant ain't selling Ric Flair shit throughout the entire duration of this match. It's basic offense. No. Well, he's learning from the Hulkster, brother. It's basic offense from the Giant on Ric Flair during the match. Flair does the flip up in the corner. He gets slammed off the top rope. Instead of a superplex, it's the Giant, so you only need a regular suplex to make it look good. So Flair taking his typical bumps here. The ladies then distract the Giant, who's attempting to choke slam the Nature Boy at that point. But Flair, while the Giant's distracted, boom, nails the low blow, and the Giant sells. Down he goes, but it doesn't take long. He's like the Undertaker, Steve. He sits up. But Ric Flair on the offense, he takes over, he beats down the Giant, and he takes the brass knuckles out. Boom! Lays out the Giant, Steve. That's not fair. And out goes the Giant. He's out cold. And it's time, for the figure 4 leg lock. Ric Flair locks it in. But like the Undertaker once again, the Giant sits up, grabs Flair in a chokehold while in the figure 4. Flair has to release the hold. They're up to their feet and choke slam. 5 minutes, 48 seconds. The Giant is the new WCW World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This felt very flat and out of nowhere, and a little bit unnecessary.
Out of nowhere is right.
So like, it makes sense because of where they go, and I guess it makes sense in that sense that they just want Flair and Savage to have like a blood feud. No title ramifications, things like that, whatever. That makes sense. And then obviously you got Sting and Giant, so that kind of gives you a title match on your pay-per-view now, since that was announced as like a singles match, but now it's a title match. So in that regard, it makes sense. But this felt very flat. The match was uneventful. It was very basic. I don't know if that's because the Giant just isn't ready to do anything worth a damn in the ring, or what the case is, or Flair's just going through the motions because he doesn't give a shit at this point. But this was bad. I didn't care for it at all. I mean, it's not what you'd expect from Ric Flair. And I get it. Everybody loves Ric Flair, but man, this stuff in '96, his promos aren't very good. His matches are very repetitive and very boring. I don't know if he's checked out or what the issue is here, but he is not very good at this point.
Yeah, he's not Ric Flair. Yeah, I don't know what it is either, because it doesn't come off as lazy. It just comes off as a different human being altogether.
Yeah, like his promos talking about, well, it's always about the women. And
right.
Well, I have notes for next week, for his promo next week on the 5-6 show, so we'll get to it there. But even here, like all he cares about is a woman and Liz, talk to him, say this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, where's the Ric Flair that cares about his matches and his opponents? Yeah, he had, $1,000 suits, $1,000 shoes, $1,000 necklaces, Rolexes, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, like, he talked about his opponent and he put over the match. He doesn't even care about this title. He doesn't care about the Giant. All he cares about is rubbed it in Macho's face that he has as a woman.
Right.
Like, that's all he cares about. And that's not Ric Flair. I get it, but it sucks.
No, and it doesn't work out for him here either, because it's a very abrupt title change. The Giant wins the belt out of absolutely nowhere. here. Yeah. So after the match, it's promo time. Mean Gene with the new champion, the Giant, and his manager, Jimmy Hart. Ric Flair gets to go home with the women, says Jimmy Hart. But Jimmy Hart gets to go home with the Giant, which is kind of creepy, and the championship. So Jimmy Hart now the manager of the WCW Heavyweight Champion. The Giant says the belt's been his since Halloween Havoc 95. Now he proves it, and that's the Giant. So he's the champion now. It kind of came out of nowhere. But Giant was scheduled to challenge Sting at the Slamboree pay-per-view. So now we learned that the Slamboree match will be a title match. So it went from Giant versus Sting to Giant defending the WCW title versus Sting. DeMelt says about the Giant winning the title, some speculated last-minute booking, as did I, but the decision to go with the Giant as champion was made at least several weeks back before this Nitro, as apparently the Giant versus Sting was the main event match for WCW Slamboree that was always going to be a world title match. DeMelt says, no doubt the decision to have it happen when it did stems from the idea that the word would get out since it was taped a week in advance, and it would lead to a ratings boost on April 29th TV when WCW has to move Nitro for 4 weeks to the 7 p.m. time slot, which is true, and TNT's commitments would go to the NBA playoffs later in the evening. And they thought this would immediately establish Nitro in the new time slot, the Giant winning the WCW title from the Nature Boy. And we're going to see how that does after we look at the Raw show, and we'll check out the ratings at that point. So, segment of the night, Steve, was it the Steiners against Fire and Ice in that 3-minute and 22-second awesome fight? Was it Sting and Luger against the Heat in a solid TV match, for sure? Finlay and Regal trying to beat the shit out of each other. Wow. Just what a solid night overall. Like every single segment other than that last world title match. What a show.
Yeah, this was actually a really good show. This isn't even really a question, though. The parking lot brawl. I still remember as a kid watching it, me and my friend. We loved it. It was just so different and unique for its time because this is way before like the hardcore wrestling came mainstream in WWF and WCW. Obviously, ECW was doing stuff, that was crazy, but I don't recall them ever going out into the streets and doing things like this or having a match out there. They may have, but I never seen ECW live, so
yeah.
Until TNN, so like that's just such a small audience. So this is the first time you've seen something like that for the most part. And like you said, when you have two friends that don't care to beat the shit out of each other, it makes for good TV, and that's what this was. And I still remember it today. I love it. I asked my friends if they've ever seen it, and they're like, no, never seen it. I was like, here's the date, go watch it. So I think it's one of those things that people need to see.
No, yeah, I remember knowing that
it still holds up.
It does. It really does. Like watching this is just as good today as it would have been, 25 years ago. Wow. My God.
And that's because of Regal and the Bruiser, because they made it look as real as possible. And it looked like they just bumped into each other, looked at each other sideways, and started throwing hands. And this is what they came up with.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was good stuff.
That's what makes it good. It was a work, but it wasn't.
I think this was the second ever episode of Nitro since its inception that I didn't get to see live. And it was because it came on at 7, and I guess I was just kind of out of it in high school doing my own thing, probably sports and other things like that. And somehow it like threw me off. I wasn't expecting it to not air, at the 9 o'clock slot. So I had to wait for the replay. But, man, that was the match. Like that was the key thing that I was so upset that I didn't get to see when it happened. So I was like, made sure that I still got to see that match. This is like the second Nitro ever that I didn't watch live at this point. I'm sure once it gets, bad years later here, I'm fine with like not watching Nitro, but at this point it was like, I never wanted to miss it, much less a match like that. So it was good to get to relive this. I haven't really watched this in many, many, many years, and it still holds up, like you said, as we head over to WWF Raw. But before we get there, here on Raw, it's going to be April 29th, but on April 28th, Sunday night, it was In Your House 7. Good Friends, Better Enemies. Quick results, Mark Marrow over the 1-2-3 Kid by disqualification in 7 minutes, 15 seconds after Triple H's interference on the free-for-all pre-show. During the pay-per-view, it was the British Bulldog and Owen Hart over Jake Roberts and Ahmed Johnson in 14 minutes, after Davey used Jim Cornette's tennis racket and then a standing knee bar. Got the submission over Jake the Snake. During the show, oh boy, the Ultimate Warrior over Intercontinental Champion Goldust by countout in 7 minutes and 45 seconds of one of the worst matches in wrestling history. We'll get to that in a moment. Vader defeated Razor Ramon in Razor's last match on TV. Vader countered the Razor's Edge into a backdrop and then dropped down in a big butt splash. Got the pin on Razor in 15 minutes. Tag team champions, the Body Donnas over the Godwins. Henry Godwin slop dropped Skip, but Zip sneaks in and cradles Henry, old Hank, for the win in 7 minutes and 15 seconds. Now, over these last 3 matches, there's some notes here from the Observer. DeMelt says, as it relates to the pay-per-view show, the story on Goldust, and if you remember the last several weeks of the Monday Warfare show, we've been talking about Goldust having a bum leg and not even being on the house shows, and his TV matches had been already recorded. So he really wasn't able to work going into the pay-per-view. But the story on Goldust going in is that they were expecting him to work a limited matchup until basically the last day going into the pay-per-view, but the leg never responded as fast as they expected. So they set up what turned out to be a pretty well acknowledged as a bad situation. It was supposed to only go 5 minutes, a 5-minute segment here, Steve. That's including ring introductions, 5-minute segment, which they figured would at least get them out of the jam. As it turned out, the whole thing went closer to 11 minutes, which, man, it felt like 20 to me, which was way too long, says DeMeltz, and ended up cutting the Body Donna's Godwin match back from 18 minutes to 7, which may have also been a good thing. The Vader versus Razor match was then lengthened because after the Warrior deal, which they hoped originally would be a decent match because of Goldust, they felt they needed a second strong match because everyone figured Shawn and Diesel would be decent enough. They could also get a good match out of Vader and Razor, which makes sense. The match was good between Vader and Razor, although Vader came in too heavy and ran out of gas at the end, says DeMeltz. WWF champion also, Diesel, another good match. Unfortunately here, we get this, whatever the hell this was, between the Warrior and Goldust. I should note Goldust debuted a bodyguard at this pay-per-view. This is his one and only appearance, by the way, his only night as the bodyguard, which for good reason. Couldn't even protect Goldie from the Warrior. It was Mantar in a new gimmick. It's Goldust's bodyguard here. Of course, Mantar takes a bump, probably just to fill in for Goldust taking bumps. It's one of the worst. Well, you guys got to go to patreon.com/WrestleCopia to really listen to us cover this match as part of the watch along series and then your house good friends better enemies show over there on Patreon. But man, that was a bad match. It was easily one of the worst of all time.
Oh man. Look at this time on those matches.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got through it.
Yeah. And then, of course, main event of that In Your House was HBK over Diesel in a no-holds-barred match, 18 minutes after they got involved with Mad Dog Vachon's prosthetic leg, even played a part in the match before Shawn Michaels nails the super kick, pins Diesel. This is Razor and Diesel's last night on TV for the company. We know they'll still be there for the rest of April into May. We get the old the click curtain call nonsense from Madison Square Garden still to come. But as far as TV goes, Diesel and Razor are out the door. So no more neither one of these guys after the pay-per-view.
Deuces.
They're on their way to go do something else somewhere else, so I'm sure we'll figure that out when it happens. But for right now, we head to Monday Night Raw, April 29th, and they're live in Sioux City, Iowa, in front of 3,347 fans. It's the fallout from the In Your House pay-per-view. We see clips from last night, post-pay-per-view clips. After Shawn beats Diesel, the British Bulldog rushes to ringside, and he is pissed off. Coming after Shawn Michaels, he confronts the Heartbreak Kid after the Diesel match. We're going to find out what that was all about later in this show as we kick things off with a match between Mankind taking on Bart Gunn while Billy Gunn out with an injury. Mankind with some type of blood makeup on his face. It's something new he hadn't worn before on his face. So he's covered on his hand and face with this, it looks like literally makeup, red makeup, but it's supposed to be some type of blood. Even gets it all over Bart's jeans, his ass during the match. I wrote, really weird. I mean, I guess, he's Mankind, so they're going for something there with the blood, but it just didn't work out. Obviously, they don't use it ever again. I don't know if you even paid attention to it.
I thought he just beat the shit out of himself before the match started.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize it was makeup, but yeah, I think that's what they were going for because it was like right under his eye too, where it looked like he'd been punching himself in the face. So I don't know. It looked ridiculous, and I'm glad they never did it again.
Yeah. So this is a different era in wrestling. A lot of new guys coming in doing things that weren't common for the WWF wrestlers, punching, kicking, your typical offense. Mankind with some unique offense here early, and Bart Gunn has absolutely no idea how to sell. It's a little awkward. Foley misses a corner charge, and then Bart takes over, works the arm of Mankind. Mankind, though, comes back, nails a baseball slide kick, sends Bart to the floor as we go to commercial break. When we come back, Mick Foley, Mankind works over Gunn on the outside of the ring, even lands a couple of Dick Murdoch elbows there to the throat and chest area over the apron. Bart fires up, though, makes the comeback, though the crowd is still dead for a Bart Gunn comeback. Nails a hard left hand, does he? If we only knew back then what we would know during the Brawl for All, Steve, maybe Mankind would have sold it a little better, the old hard left hand from Bart Gunn. Match goes on. Bart has to come off the top with a missile dropkick and doesn't even get a 2 count. Mick Foley kicking out on 1 from a missile dropkick. Then it's a top rope shitty elbow drop from Bart Gunn. That does manage a 2 count. But Bart tries a ground and pound style offense on Mick Foley, but he grabs Bart Gunn into the mandible claw. He's rendered paralyzed. Mick Foley picks up the win in 11 minutes. 11 minutes. Entirely way too long. And the crowd was dead, which didn't help matters at all.
Yeah, this was very bad. I'm not a fan of Mick Foley, and I don't mind the Mankind gimmick, especially at this stage, because it's new. And his promos are excellent, but this was 11 minutes. Like, why? Why are you giving Bart Gunn offense on this new character that basically killed the Undertaker after Mania? So it didn't make any sense. He should just be dominating people still until Undertaker comes back and they get him in the ring. He shouldn't be taking moves and doing things like that. I don't think it's too early for that. So this match went way too long for who was in the ring. Was pretty bad.
Yeah, and I feel like it wasn't too long ago they did the same thing between Bart Gunn and Stone Cold Steve Austin as well. Given the match just went way too long to get their top heels over their upcoming heels that they're pushing over a guy who's been relegated to tag team wrestling at this point. The piano music does play, however, and Mankind soothes himself. The Beast is soothed. Bart Gunn is released. Off to commercial. But we're back from break again. It's a backstage promo. Jim Ross wants to talk to Bart Gunn about that mandible claw. Bart's still selling the effects of the claw, so Jim Ross is feeding him the lines. That looked like paralysis out there. And it wouldn't take long for Mankind to attack Bart Gunn a second time. Again, a second mandible claw to Bart Gunn. Down he goes in the backstage area. So Mankind, a wild, dangerous character.
Yeah, Bart had no business being in this role. I get it. They don't have really anything for him because Billy's out. But, yeah, Ross was feeding him lines. He was basically reiterating what he was saying. And then, thankfully, Mankind comes and kicks his ass again. So
yeah, it was very uncomfortable. Bart Gunn in that situation, he just wasn't ready to play. I don't know. He just wasn't ready for prime time as far as promos and shit like that. Real storylines go.
Not his forte.
No. Show goes on. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase in his corner, taking on Scott Taylor, the future Scotty 2 Hottie. Man, we just saw him on the Grenade back in 1993. He was here forever doing jobs. Savio Vega joins commentary during this match after Austin cost Vega the Intercontinental title during a match with Goldust recently here on Raw. During commentary, Savio issues a Caribbean strap match challenge to Stone Cold at In Your House, Beware of Dog. And then Steve Austin finished Scott Taylor off with a Cesaro swing, or a giant swing, if you will, which was just kind of weird. And the $1 Million Dream puts Scotty 2 Hottie out at 2 minutes and 37 seconds. And Savio then reiterates he wants to make a public challenge on the live microphone to Stone Cold Steve Austin for the upcoming In Your House Beware of Dog pay-per-view. He challenges him, that public challenge, for that Caribbean strap match I just mentioned. So we're going to find out if Steve Austin will accept that challenge here very shortly. So Savio Vega out there on commentary, Steve Austin with a nice squash match there. Promo time, and here we go. Vince McMahon in the ring, and with a who's who of nonsense. Once this storyline gets going here, it's the British Bulldog along with Jim Cornette and the Bulldog's wife, Diana Hart / Diana Smith, if you will. And then also Shawn Michaels out here with his mentor, Jose Lothario, who felt really out of place in this story. As we get going, we saw at the top of the show, the Bulldog confronted Shawn after the pay-per-view last night. So as we get going, we're going to figure out what that's all about here. Shawn puts over beating Bret Hart, because of course he does, at WrestleMania, beating Diesel last night at the In Your House, and he tells everybody, keep the challenges coming. Well, Jim Cornette says Shawn tried to proposition Diana Hart last night during the Bulldogs tag team match at the In Your House pay-per-view. Someone sent for Diana at ringside. I should mention she was sitting ringside for that tag team match involving the Bulldog. Someone sent for her to come backstage during that match, and it was Shawn Michaels himself. Cornette calls Shawn a pervert and a fornicator. Oh my. Diana is an innocent woman that Shawn tried to deflower, Steve. Diana even goes so far as to tell Shawn, I know you want me. To which Michaels responds, with all due respect, please do not flatter yourself. And what did the five fingers say to the face, Steve?
Slap.
Slap, to quote Dave Chappelle. And boom, Diana Smith slaps Shawn Michaels. And, of course, Shawn says, I guess we know who wears the pants in the Smith family, which upsets the Bulldog. It leads to a pull-apart brawl between Shawn Michaels and the British Bulldog. And I wrote, could have easily worked the same had this just been for the belt rather than this soap opera shit. I didn't care for any of this promo, any of this segment, until Bulldog and Shawn got into it, just a pull-apart brawl. I got into like the last 10 seconds of this entire promo, and all it took was these two guys wanting to get at each other. Just make it for the belt. This doesn't have to be General Hospital, Steve.
No, like, Bulldog could have easily just went out after the match was over against Diesel and laid out Shawn and says, I want your belt. And wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. There you go. We're good to go. We don't need this stupid shit.
No, and you have one of the greatest promos of all time, Jim Cornette, out there. All he has to do is say, these are the accolades of the British Bulldog. He's the greatest. He deserves a title shot. I mean, that's it. With the Bulldog believing his own hype. And then you get into the brawl, and off we go. There's no need for this fornicator shit in between.
No, I don't know. I don't know what the point of this. And, you know, we live in a Me Too world now, you know, and you're basically using this as a gimmick, as an angle, a work to sell a title match. Like, you're basically spitting in the face of people that actually go through this. You know, Shawn is like, yeah, whatever. You're just don't flatter yourself and all that. Like, you're not good enough to get this to happen to you for me. So, like, it's just ridiculous. I never cared for this. I thought it was all a bunch of hokey bullshit. Back then, it is now. It's even worse now, just because of the environment we live in. And I'm with you. Like, the best part of this whole thing was the last 10 seconds when they started to pull apart. After, like, everything before then, like, I don't even care to hear it. And like you said, you're wasting Jim Cornette, like, one of the best promos. And he delivered this promo with conviction and fire, and he nailed it. Like, he did his job.
Well, Jimmy's going to do whatever he's got to do. I mean,
I mean, he sold it as best as he could. He probably thinking in his mind, wow, we don't need this shit. Not in wrestling. But he did it anyway, and he did it to the best of his ability, which is really damn good.
Right.
And it's sad that you just wasted on that. I would much rather him go out there and spew the accolades of Bulldog, just like they did when Bulldog went against Bret. It worked then. It would work now against Shawn, because, you know, Bret got lucky against Bulldog, and Bulldogs beat Bret, and Bulldog, being his brother-in-law, can say, you know, I think you're better than you're not as good as Bret Hart, so I can definitely beat you as champion.
Right.
I may not be able to beat Bret, but I can beat you because you're no Bret Hart.
Well, it took you an hour to beat Bret. It took me, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of shit there that they could have went with instead of this nonsense. This almost feels like, Vince Russo was already here at this point as Vic Venom in the magazine room. This almost feels like a Vince Russo thing. Like he was walking through the room and gave this might have been like Vince Russo's, I'm not saying it was, but this almost feels like Vince Russo's first storyline, right?
Isn't Livewire coming soon too?
Bro, yeah, it's coming in the fall, bro.
That way that he's coming up on. I think I told you this the other day. I was like, it sucks it's Vince Russo because he makes a lot of good points, but then like you said, he just keeps going and ruins it. So
yeah, he don't know when to stop. Yeah.
He really doesn't. Yeah. But no, this definitely smells like Vince Russo, and I think he is doing stuff because didn't he do a lot of the gold dust stuff early? I
don't really remember off the top of my head right now. You could be right. I know he was very heavily involved with the gold dust stuff at points.
Yeah, so I'd imagine he has, maybe not say, but he's probably giving ideas, and Vince is like, wow, that's some good shit, pal. Let's do that. And
yeah, one life to live shit right there. Yeah, let's do that.
This reeks of Vince Russo. It really does.
You're right. Yeah. It's what I made. First thing I thought of. What doesn't reek of Vince Russo? I mean, I guess I'm giving him credit here. Yeah, I guess I'm giving him a little credit here. It's the Godwins. That's Henry O and Phineas I, accompanied to the ring by Hillbilly Jim and some pigs, Steve. They're taking on the new and improved rockers of Marty Jannetty and Al Snow, who's Leif Cassidy at this point. This is a number 1 contenders match. I wrote, again, the Godwins just lost last night, a tag title match. They're already in a number 1 contenders match the next day, Steve. That's how low we are on tag teams here in the WWF. We get a Sunny promo, though, during the match. She says, she's carrying the title belts over, they're covering some areas here. She says she needs to get a closer look at the action, so we're presuming Sunny's headed out to the ring. As we get a whole lot of nothing during the match, the Rockers try to corner and double team Phineas, but he has one of his spells, by God, and fights them both off with mule kicks and things that mule kick, Steve. Apparently, if you're a farmer and you have animals on your farm, you gotta have a mule, which means you gotta know how to do a mule kick. And that was one of Phineas's best moves there, the mule kick. I don't know if they're ever connected, but my God, we saw it here on this episode.
If it ever did.
It would take somebody's head off, I'll tell you that. Which is the idea of a mule kick, a real mule kick.
Right.
During the match, the Rockers take over. They try to stall. The crowd's just blah, and I don't blame them. They're dead during this match. Then it's Sunny to ringside, which wakes the crowd up a little bit. As we go into a break, we come back. And during the commentary, we hear, not a bad pair. The belts, I wonder who said that on commentary. Any guesses?
Jerry Lawler.
Absolutely. Good old King. The show goes on, though. It's the Body Donuts with heat on old Hank. As instead of Godwin chants or Henry chants or Phineas chants, we hear Sunny chants. As she's at ringside again, I mentioned the crowd was dead until she came out there. Hank gets a hot tag to Phineas after Leif Cassidy accidentally pushes Henry into his own partner. Hot tag to Phineas, and the crowd barely makes a noise during the entire hot tag comeback. Phineas and Leif Cassidy spill out to the floor. Sunny gets too close to the action, so Hillbilly Jim chases her away from ringside, and we wind up with a double countout between the Godwins and the Rockers on Raw with a dead crowd. And the match went 10 minutes and 30 seconds. My only response to this was, oof. And Sunny celebrates because I guess this means with nobody winning the number 1 contenders match, in Sunny's mind, the Body Donnas don't have to wrestle anyone. Then we learn there's going to be a rematch on Superstars. I wrote joy. I mostly wrote joy because I know I won't be watching Superstars, Steve.
No, I definitely won't be either. Do you think they just threw this show together we're not contested by Nitro, so let's just throw shit out there. It doesn't matter what
I don't think that they had that mentality yet. I just think this is what they had at that point. I mean, you're down to no tag teams. You have none. Billy Gunn's hurt, so one of your 4 tag teams are gone. That leaves you the Body Donnas, the Godwins, and the Rockers. That's your tag team. Right? That's it.
No, I don't mean like this, but I meant like these matches. Like Bart Gunn and Mankind go 11 minutes. This tag match goes 10 minutes. These matches have no business going this long. So like that's.
But
what
it was just the
put
times.
together.
It was just the times as best I could tell. I mean, it was just the times.
I don't know, man. This show is rough. It's very boring.
It's not over yet, though. We get a promo time.
It's
It's Jim Ross in the bowels. That just doesn't sound good. With Mankind, of all people. Mankind finally explains how his mandible claw works. During the course of being shackled and locked up in whatever dungeon he was from whatever person locked him away. It's never explained who did this to him, how he escaped, how he kept promos from this dungeon, and how he got here to the WWF. Apparently Vince McMahon freed him. But Mankind explored all of the nerve holds and pressure points on the body while he was sitting in this dungeon board, okay? And I wrote, he did this to himself? It doesn't make sense to me. But he said he did it until he found out the right one, and that was the mandible. He did the mandible claw to himself. It's his story, I guess. Anyway, so just buy it and shut up and deal with it, I suppose. Mankind says there is no escaping the mandible claw. Fear and paralyzation overcomes the body, which is true. So he's explaining how it works at least. And to close out the promo, he says that he has no fear for the Undertaker. So Mankind explains off what the mandible claw does. It only took a few months, but they're here, a couple of months, but they're here. They're telling him what it does, what it is. And we know this Undertaker feud's continuing on.
Yeah, I mean, this promo was really good. I really liked it. I liked the way he explained how he came up with the mandible claw. Like, he put reason behind it, no matter how ridiculous it was.
Oh, it was ridiculous because you're not going to apply pain thresholds to your own body until you pass out or whatever. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but I also think too, like, at least he didn't say, well, it's just a good move or whatever.
No, and I feel like this is that era still where you came up with your own shit, right? I mean, in a promo. So at least Mick Foley went home and goes, I got to come up with something to explain this. And that was literally the best way to explain it away anyway. So I'll give him credit, no doubt.
Yeah, it was good. To be honest, I think I'm going to give a spoiler here for my favorite segment. That was my favorite part of the show,
okay.
To be honest with you.
Wow. Yeah, it's a rough show. It's a rough show. And that will be that will continue here in the next segment as the Ultimate Warrior takes on Isaac Yankem DDS. Did you ever think you'd see a day where the Ultimate Warrior was wrestling a dentist? As the Warrior makes his way out to the ring, then leaves, Steve. And then makes his way out to the ring a second time for some unknown reason, other than maybe he had to take a shit. It was the Warrior. Maybe there's no reason at all. We have Jerry Lawler in the corner of his dentist, Isaac Yankem, here for more reason than one. We'll find out as the weeks progress. So Lawler's on commentary, but also accompanying Isaac Yankem at the same time as Warrior dominates the future Kane. We go into commercial break, and we come back with the finish of the match. It's clotheslines, the shoulder block, and the splash. The Ultimate Warrior picks up the win in 4 minutes with commercial break. And then, for the hell of it, he pitches the 7-foot Isaac Yankem to the floor like garbage. There was if Isaac Yankem got any offense in, it was during the commercial break. I mean, he was straight up job guy here for the Warrior.
Yeah. Was this it for him?
I don't think so. I think he was still jobbing after that, but that's an excellent question for a very good reason.
Because it just feels like we're done. But, well, it has to be it or close to it because Fake Diesel and Razor are coming soon.
In the fall, right?
In
the fall?
Within like 2 or 3 months.
Oh, is it that soon?
We're getting... I don't know. It was the Survivor Series time around September, October.
The fall, yeah.
I don't know, but like it just feels like.
Yeah, I don't doubt that he's on his way out as his character. I mean, it was a flop from the start. They gave him vignettes. He worked Brett, and then that was pretty much it.
Yeah, interesting. But yeah, he got no offense. And my comment here was like, it's still weird seeing Ultimate Warrior on Monday Night Raw.
In 1996. But it's a different world. It doesn't work.
It doesn't. Like he does not fit. And I wouldn't even say 1996 is modern wrestling, but it doesn't work at all.
No, and it won't be on this episode of Monday Warfare, but the next episode of Monday Warfare, where he starts shilling his wrestling academy and all the other horse shit when he's like, Warrior Man here. Like that shit, that's the end of Warrior for me. So we're not there yet. Not on this episode of the Monday Warfare. But
hype too. Did they hype during the commentary that tune into Superstars so you can get into Warrior University and learn how to be a warrior, like the Ultimate Warrior or something like that?
That's a hard pass, Steve. I believe it never opened, from my understanding. I believe people showed up and then it was empty, from what I was told.
Wow, really?
Doesn't surprise me at all. And that was the end of Raw. It was Warrior over Kane, the future Kane, in 4 minutes flat, as Jerry Lawler wants to enter the ring to confront Warrior, but there's not enough slack on his headset cord, so he just can't get in there. And it's a fun little Jerry Lawler finish there to the end of the show. Of course, there'll be more Warrior and Lawler coming up. Segment of the night, Steve, you said it was the Mankind promo for you, which I believe, considering what else was on this show. My list of segments was it Warrior squashing Kane? Was it Shawn is a fornicator? And then I just wrote, woof, rough night for Raw. That was it. I was out of fucking ideas at that point. I think I cheated once or twice on this show so far where I picked nothing. And I really, really, really want to do it here. But I'm going to try to scroll back through it as fast as I can. Not the Bart Gunn match. Can I do like Stone Cold versus Scotty 2 Hotty just for like because it was short? I mean, I don't really know what to do. No fornicator. The Goblins match was awful. The Mankind promo was okay. I mean, I could go with that too, but really overall, just a very, very, very bad episode of Raw.
Yeah, it wasn't very good at all. It was cool to see the Ultimate Warrior, but it just didn't work. As much as I hate to say it, it just didn't work.
No, it was not good.
So I'm not going to just pick it because that's my guy, but Mankind and Bart Gunn went about 6 minutes too long.
Yeah.
And the tag match, I have no interest in anything that the Rockers, New Rockers, well, I ain't going to say old Rockers, but New Rockers, I have zero interest in that garbage.
Yeah.
And so that just leaves Mankind. And at this point, like, he hasn't gotten to the point where I was done with Mick Foley, which that happens not until like Dude Love and all that stupid crap is when I'm done. But no, I mean, it's very little to choose from. So I don't even know. Better show of the week is easy.
Yeah, we'll get there in a moment.
Yeah.
Obviously, the real winner here is pretty obvious, but them ratings, they be in. And even though Nitro is by far seemingly the better show of the week, WWF Raw posted a 3.9 rating and a 5.6 share, tying its second highest rated Raw in history. You gotta be kidding me. While WCW Nitro, despite trying to get the word out about having a world title change, headline its show at the new time slot of 7 p.m., Nitro did a 2.1. So Raw 3.9, Nitro 2.1. Oh, Raw almost doubled Nitro. It's got to be the time, right? It's got to be the time slot, right?
Yeah, you'd have to think that with Nitro being, like, they're both uncontested. So those guys that are used to watching both shows at 9 o'clock Eastern, we're just tuning into Raw. So the whole Nitro audience that they would normally have is there. That has to be it.
You also have to factor in that
3.9.
Yeah, but you have to also have to factor in that the NBA was airing live. So if the NBA went on the air at 8:30, 9 o'clock, it was airing 3 hours earlier on the West Coast, which means Nitro had to air live on the West Coast as well. So Nitro was coming on the West Coast. I'm not trying to make excuses here, but they were coming on the West Coast when kids might have still been in school, people might have still been at work. So, it's a lot earlier in the day.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, and also, what's crazy, though? They put up a 3.9, and they gave him absolute shit. So yeah. It's like, I wonder how many people are going to carry over to next week.
It'll be interesting.
Although they do have a pretty loaded card next week.
Well, we'll see, because I kind of remember them doing okay here, if I remember correctly. DeMelt says the time slot change for Monday Nitro due to the NBA playoffs on TNT is going to leave WCW destroyed in the ratings battle through the entire month of May. It's 4 weeks of NBA, I believe, the playoffs here on TNT, even all the way back in 1996. Raw actually outrated the NBA playoffs. Remember, Raw did it, what was it? What did I tell you it was, Steve? I apologize.
3.9.
3.9. Raw actually outrated the NBA playoffs, which ranged between a 3.0 and a 3.5. DeMel says it isn't actually unexpected, as pro wrestling does better than the NBA on most cable, most of the time anyways, unless it's a marquee matchup. So that's kind of interesting, because I don't know if that's a fact anymore.
Oh, it's a fact.
Oh, is it? Okay. I don't know. I don't follow NBA ratings. I was curious.
Depends on who you follow on Twitter, and I don't have Twitter, so people are looking for me. Good luck. But no, the whole, remember, like a few years ago when the NFL ratings slid, for a little bit, and then they kind of stabilized and just skyrocketed back up. Everybody was making a huge deal out of it, but nobody wants to talk about the NBA ratings. They're in the tank. Like ESPN games on Friday get less than 1 million viewers sometimes. So
that's why you guys need to watch, what is it, ESPN2 or whatever it is, with Peyton and Eli doing commentary now. Those are entertaining as hell. That's train wreck city in a good way.
Yeah, but no, the NBA ratings are not very good at all, and they've been on the decline the last 5 or 6 years. Really, really hitting the skids the last 2 or 3 years. So it still holds true today. Raw probably outdoes most NBA games.
So Raw.
That's why when people say like WWE's in rough shape as far as viewers and ratings, they're actually underpaid based off of what they do.
Yeah, because I think hockey gets paid more than WWE, even though they get smaller ratings. So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, they're gonna get more next round than they did this round.
That's just the way shit goes, brother.
You can produce 50 weeks of live TV and do your own production costs. Like, people are going to pay for that. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah. So the real winner here, even though Raw destroyed Nitro in the ratings here by almost double what Nitro, that won't last very long, by the way. But for right now, they're like murdering Nitro while they're at 7 p.m. With almost double the rating. For me, I think all day long, Nitro killed Raw here as far as quality product.
Yeah, I mean, 2 really good tag matches, the parking lot brawl, of course, and then you had a title change. Even if you went head-to-head, that's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah.
Especially when you're giving us Scott Taylor and Steve Austin a squash match on Monday. That's why I felt like they just kind of threw that show together, because they knew they were going to be uncontested. It just didn't feel like there was a lot of effort or energy. I don't think that early on
that they thought like that. I think they just were par for the course at that point. I really do. I truly believe Vince was going to do what Vince was going to do back then. He hadn't changed course yet. They weren't really forcing his hand to putting on a better show or a shittier show. I just think Vince put on whatever show he was going to put on. I really, really do. It was just where they were at this point. Look at the roster. I don't want to get into all that right now, but yeah, it just wasn't.
No, the roster's bad, but and it just got worse with Diesel and Razor gone. So sure. I get it. It just, you could do better than that, I think. Even with what you have, I think you can.
I don't know if you can. Not for TV, I don't know. You could probably shorten some of them shit matches.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't know.
Turn it on and rip the knob off.
You pull the pin and we'll pick up the pieces. Join me, Ray Russell, and my co-host Steven Eckstat as we take a trip down memory lane to wrestling history's past as we analyze and dissect complete years of wrestling history from your favorite promotions. From Hulkamania to Mulkymania. From the Midnight Express to the Lex Express. Which promotion are we deep diving into next? What year have we time traveled back to now? Tune in and find out on the Wrestling Memory Grenade. And remember to follow us on Twitter at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade, home of the free prize giveaway. We move into the next week. We're going to talk a little WCW news really quick. Dean Malenko captured the WCW Cruiserweight title from Shinjiro Otani at the Disney tapings on May 2nd. The match will air on Worldwide on May 18th, so Dean Malenko, the new Cruiserweight champion. Following the parking lot brawl on WCW Nitro, Finlay, Belfast Bruiser, has left WCW to go work for Otto Wanz, as I mentioned, in Austria, but is expected back in a few months. That doesn't happen. He does eventually come back. We remember Finlay back in WCW, but it's not in a few months. David Taylor, Squire David Taylor, by the way, one of Steve Regal's tag team partners, will now replace, this is fair, because this is fair, Steve, replace Finley as Steve Regal's tag team partner as part of the Slamboree Lethal Lottery. I wrote, the fake became even faker. This is just fucking awful. This is awful.
They don't even want this pay-per-view. That's how it feels. Like, why do we have this?
And Bischoff's reason for the and it made sense for the different gimmicks on the pay-per-views was you wanted to franchise each pay-per-view as a different gimmick, something, other than a regular show. And it makes sense. Lethal Lottery Battle Bowl was a great idea. Dusty came up with a great idea back in 1991. I loved 1991.
I did too.
I don't know that some of those matches were great technically, but it was still a great idea and it was presented really well. Unfortunately here, this is, like we've said, it's lazy and it's obvious. It's blatant. It's slapping you in the face as far as breaking kayfabe. There's no way all this shit happens accidentally, by the luck of the draw.
Right. It's funny, though, that Bischoff came up with that idea to individualize each pay-per-view. That's what WWE does now.
Right.
Every show has its own match name, really. Like Fatal
what the problem was?
pay-per-view.
Bischoff wasn't a booker. He profoundly, admits that. He never booked anything. So he came up with the idea to bring back the Lethal Lottery and Battle Bowl, but unfortunately Kevin Sullivan, whoever executed it this way, and Bischoff just went along with it. So he's still kind of to blame.
Yeah. Well, he knew how good it could be, and then I understand why they're doing it, but when you look at it from a surprise, oh my God, friends are going to fight friends, and enemies are going to fight enemies. That's
every
fine.
single match.
It shouldn't be every single match.
No.
And I think that's what Dusty did well. Like you said earlier, the Freebirds went against each other, and who was it? The Steiners were on opposite teams.
Right.
That's it. That's all you had. So the rest
and then
of
you
it,
had I think it was like the Sting and Cactus. They teamed up or something like that.
Yeah. Then Abdul the Butcher beat him up or something.
Those matches were like 1, 5, and 9 out of 10 tag matches too. They were separated. It was really good. It was really well done.
Yeah, this just is overkill. I get that's the idea that you'd want to do. Okay, well let's just get every feud and put them together as a team But after that, it's like, wow, this isn't a luck of a draw.
No, this is very, very. This is like I said, slap you in the face, fake. It's like, hey, if you didn't know wrestling was fake before, Rumble. Look at this.
It's like Rumble '89.
89, where all the tag teams came out. Yeah, Demolition 1 and 2, Brainbusters back to back. There was a few tag teams back to back in that match, at least 3.
But they quickly
Arn and Tully, I think.
Arn and Tully, then the Twin Towers.
Twin Towers, that's what I meant. Yeah, Brainbusters and Twin Towers.
But the Twin Towers make sense since they sold the numbers, and you can they don't catch on to this. They sold their tickets and did some shenanigans. Yeah,
my only question was why was DiBiase selling like 23 for 30? Like what the fuck? But I mean, whatever. I mean, it's semantics at that point.
Oh yeah, he's rich. But,
wrong era. Wrong era.
Yeah. But I mean, it worked because they only did it once. They've never done it again. So
Slamboree though, just no good.
Trash.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate we have to review it.
So we got a few other names coming into the company and maybe even a change in the gimmick here. We know Mean Mike Enos, the former Blake Beverly in the WWF, debuted at the Disney tapings as well as part of a new tag team called Rough and Ready with Dick Slater. We'll see Mike Enos here in not too long on WCW Nitro under a different gimmick for at least a week as the Mauler. We'll get to that pretty soon. Newcomer Kid Flash, a.k.a. real name Pete Gruner, is now going by the name of a fellow by the name of Billy Kidman here in WCW. And then Big Bubba, no trouble, has changed his gimmick once again, says the Melts. Now he will be managed by the mouth of the South Jimmy Hart doing a Harley biker character, which is one way to describe it. Never going to
wash his shirt.
And never going to wash his hair either.
Yeah.
So
what
Big Bubba.
What happened to our guy?
I don't know what happened to the boss man. You were the man. I got years of just being disappointed coming up. I could see.
It's almost like he just completely gave up hope.
Gave up life. Yeah. when he I'm not cutting my hair. I'm not shaving my beard. Fuck it. I quit.
When he lost to WrestleMania 7, it almost felt like he just completely
fell off.
This is never going to work out for me.
Well, you know what happened, Bobby
jack
Heenan
shit
hurt his
up.
mama's feelings. You don't hurt my mama's feelings.
Yeah. Well, he did get the shaft when Rude quit. That would have been an interesting feud.
Yeah, that would have been good shit. We did get a match out of him on WCW thanks to Bulldog leaving. But
yeah, but man, that would have been fun. That would have been a fun feud for sure.
Yeah, that would have been really good times. We go on, though. We go on with the May 6, 1996 episode of WCW Monday Nitro, again airing early at 7 p.m., this time from Daytona Beach, Florida, in front of 7,000 fans. Unfortunately, only 3,200 paid, Steve, as WCW champion The Giant was scheduled to take on Lex Luger in tonight's main event. So Lex Luger looking to challenge The Giant for the WCW title. We'll see what happens with that when we get to that part of the show. We kick things off, though. It's Hugh Morris scheduled to take on the Macho Man Randy Savage as Morris attacks Macho Man at ringside in the entranceway on the floor. He puts on the Macho Man's hat. He puts on the Macho Man's glasses. He even tries to put on the Macho Man's jacket, and you know this conversation took place backstage. You're too big to put it on. One arm, brother, right there. You don't want to rip my jacket. Don't rip it. Never. So Hugh Morris literally puts the jacket on one arm, doesn't even try to put it on the other arm, because it's fat guy in a little coat. He can't do it. So he's walking around with the Macho Man's jacket on one arm, and does that piss Randy Savage off? He attacks Hugh Morris, chokes him over the top rope for disqualification. And only 3 minutes into the match, and then boom, big top rope elbow drop. You think that Hugh Morris would have learned from the Repo Man who stole Macho's hat back in 93? Not here. And Macho Man just takes it out on Hugh Morris here. He gets choked out, elbow drop off the top rope. Referee Randy Eller actually gets physical with the Macho Man. And what did those 5 fingers say to the face again, Steve?
Slap?
Slap! Because the Macho Man slaps the living piss out of Randy Eller, who goes down. Oh, what a noise it made. That was a legit slap. Slap the shit right out of Randy Eller's mouth. And down goes Eller. Down goes Eller. And then the Macho Man slams him into place. Randy Anderson tries to get him. Oh, don't do it, Macho. And then Randy Anderson knows what's up. He backs off like a wise referee as the Macho Man goes up top and delivers a flying elbow drop to referee Randy Eller. I wrote, awesome. Holy balls, awesome. Slapped the shit out of him, elbowed him. If anybody could do aggression better than the Macho Man as a babyface, I don't know who it was.
Nobody. He was always so intense, man. So it didn't take much for him to snap off. He was so believable.
He wanted to kill Ric Flair so bad at this point. I mean, that was the rage and the anger behind him. But then Hugh Morris takes his first he attacks him on his way to the ring. Then he takes his gear and tries it on. So he gets choked out, disqualified. Macho Man does get disqualified for choking him out over the top rope. Then the referee gets in his face, touches him, shouldn't touch him, slaps the shit out of him. Ref has to take a bump off of it, literally. Slams him, elbow drops him over top of Randy Anderson. It was so great. The only problem with this entire segment was they started ringing the damn ring bell, and they didn't stop for 5 fucking minutes. I don't know who was out there ringing that bell, but it drove me nuts. I was going crazy watching this. They didn't stop ringing the bell for 5 minutes as there's referees and Doug Dillinger and cops and everybody coming out there to stop Macho Man from going nuts on Hugh Morris and this referee. And eventually security and the police, they arrest the Macho Man, handcuff him and everything. Macho Man off to jail, Steve.
Yeah, see you, buddy. Yeah, the bell ringing was annoying. It's almost like watching a RVD match in ECW with Fonzie just laying in on the damn whistle for 35 minutes.
Too much, yeah.
But no, the bell, it got old real quick, and clearly nobody's stopping him. So stop ringing the bell. We get it. Yeah, pretty terrible. That kind of ruins it sometimes. Because I was enjoying it, and then I kind of just fast forward because I didn't want to hear that bell ringing for so damn long.
It was a ridiculous amount of time. I don't know who was out there doing it, who thought it was a great idea. Maybe they thought they were getting themselves over. Hey, I'm the bell ringer. I'm going to ring the bell for this entire duration of this segment because that's what they do. So it was very annoying.
Asshole.
In between, before we get to the next match, we get a brief moment. Ray the Crippler Stevens has passed away. Eric Bischoff announces that donations can be made to the Cauliflower Alley Club, which was a big thing for Ray Stevens, of course, a longtime legendary wrestler. I wish Bischoff had gave Bobby Heenan a minute on TV. I get it. It's not the time frame period or whatever, but Bobby always went on record as the greatest wrestler he ever saw in the ring was Ray Stevens. He meant a lot to Bobby during Bobby's early era. Just the bumping and the crazy, what a tremendous worker he was. So I was kind of bummed out that Bobby didn't at least get to say like goodbye like he did to Monsoon. But Bischoff did mention that Bobby, knew him well and things. And Eric put him over. I know Eric probably met Ray quite a bit during late 80s AWA because Vern would bring in Wahoo and Ray and shit to work commentary and things like that. So, yeah, but we're at that point now. In 1996, Ray Stevens has passed away.
Yeah, I think Bischoff even made the comment when I think Malenko was coming down the aisle that we'll be able to talk about Ray in a minute, and I don't think they ever went back to it after they did the in memoriam thing.
Right.
But yeah, it would have been great to hear. I think Bobby was trying to say something about him, but Bischoff kind of cut him off or something like that. Yeah, pretty cool that they did this. We see something else on Raw regarding Ray Stevens. From everything I've heard from you and just the people that talk about him, or when you try to search stuff out for Ray Stevens,
right?
Everybody kind of has the same sort of response. He was one of the greatest that you never saw because there's not a lot of his footage out there. Right. So
yeah, he was the inventor of the flip bumps, the bumps up in the flip bumps, the Shawn Michaels bumps, or any of the other guy, Ric Flair bumps, and Adrian Adonis bumps. Ray Stevens was the first. It all came from the Crippler. And a lot of the top rope moves, Ray. I'm not saying Ray invented the top rope, but he was the one that he was one of the first guys that actually did it. Him and Pat Patterson as a tag team, and even Ray as a singles, sold out the Cow Palace, San Francisco, for years upon years.
That's
quite
hard to do.
Yeah. I mean, Ray Stevens was unfortunately like you just said it. There's not very much Ray Stevens out there in his prime. I mean, he came to the WWF. He was already pretty much done by the time he got to Vince. Yeah. And he still got that feud over Snuka turned babyface to work that angle with Ray Stevens, the pile driver on the concrete and Snuka doing the leap over the top, So it was, Vince knew what he had. He knew he had a guy that could carry a feud, maybe not physically anymore, but certainly he had the, mentality of it. So, yeah. He knew what to do to get the crowd invested. Absolutely. So
yeah, thank God he did make it to events so we can have something. But
right.
I think I don't know if people comprehend how hard it is to sell out the same damn building for years upon years with the same guy on top. And when they were running it weekly or bi-weekly. I mean, this isn't like once a month or once tri-monthly. This is like every week, every 2 weeks in a arena, people. This is not fucking, 300 globetrotting going to different cities night after night, day after day. It's the same building, the same people, the same wrestlers for the most part selling this out. And when you have one guy on top, as much as Ray Stevens was on top in San Francisco, to sell it out as much as he did, it's just mind-boggling. And when you hear the name The Crippler too, I don't think of a guy that's gonna flop around the ring like a fish out of water because of how he sold. Like, from the stuff that I've seen, he flops around like Mr. Perfect did, or he has like those springs in his legs where he sells like $1 million. And then, when I seen or heard about Ray Stevens, I could see how Bobby Heenan got his selling, because Heenan sells the same way.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Just flies over the top rope, which is amazing that Heenan did that as much as he did, where he just fly over the top rope and land on his feet and hightail it out of there. Or that bump where he just go flying over the top rope, and you don't expect that from Heenan, but that's a Ray Stevens sell job. They sell a lot alike. I wish there was more out there, because that's the kind of stuff that if you don't have footage of somebody, it's hard to appreciate them. I think you can hear the stories, but it's just kind of like the last bout of Atlanta. Like, you heard the stories, like, oh, it's so amazing. You want to see it. Obviously, we see it now, but there's no way we're going to see it.
It didn't exist for like 30 years or something.
Yeah. So it's like you wish you could see more, or just so you can appreciate him more. Yeah. And I think he'd be talked about more if he could.
Yeah, when he even went to the AWA in the 70s, Bobby Heenan got to manage him, and Nick Bockwinkel is a tag team. So, I mean, there's Ray.
I bet you that's some good shit. That has to be available, right?
Yeah, there's some out there. It's just a great.
Vince is just sitting on it.
He's sitting on it
sitting
forever
on all
now.
that AWA shit
Forever now. Yeah. So we'll go on with this Nitro. I forgot where we were. We're on May 6, 1996, not 1966. I love the oldies. I love Ray Stevens, but we're going to get back here in time, 1996. Dean Malenko taking on Jushin Thunder Liger, and since he's Japanese, of course, we need the evil stereotypical Sonny Ono. It's his manager here as the match gets going. I wrote, holy shit, they're going to let these two fight without a distraction. You know why I thought that, Steve? Hulk Hogan's not here this week, and he's usually the big proponent of intervening in any good match on Nitro. Because anytime you get two good wrestlers against each other on Nitro, you better rest assured there's a Hulk Hogan angle going on backstage so they can do the split screen. So I'm all pumped. I'm like, it's Malenko and Liger, and Hulk Hogan's not here. And then I wrote, oh, never mind. Because out comes Ric Flair with his ladies. They're going to eat dinner inside the arena now that Macho Man has been tossed from the building. So we go into commercial break. We come back. In all fairness, Eric Bischoff did pay more attention to this match than when they show the other cruiserweight matches when Hogan's there and things. But we still have the issue with the camera cutting away to go show Ric Flair enjoying his dinner with Elizabeth and Woman throughout the match. Dean works the leg over Liger. Liger makes the comeback, does the back rolling kick into the corner, and top rope plancha to the floor onto Malenko, but back inside, it's Dean with the top rope gut buster, and he tries a tiger bomb here, and I kind of blinked and missed this. I feel like they might have screwed up, and I didn't catch it. Dean tries the tiger bomb. Next thing I know, Liger's sitting on Dean's chest for a pinfall. So I'm not sure if Dean lost his footing and Liger landed on him, and they just kind of worked it out that way, or if this was planned. So I missed like 2 seconds of the spot. But I do know the very next spot is Dean going into the tiger bomb and getting the pin in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. I wrote, that was one of the better cruiser matches thus far on Nitro, by far. It was a solid TV match. Nothing special or fancy, but it was a good wrestling match. And other than that little finish issue there that I wish I hadn't have missed, it was a solid match. I'm kind of curious. I don't know if you caught it or not, but did it look legit to you? Did it look like maybe they slipped up and they covered? I don't know.
I know that's how Bischoff sold it, that like Liger reversed it. It was just very odd. But he did kind of take him up pretty fast, and Liger did land on his chest somehow. Like, I don't know how they got in that position, but I rewound it to see, like, I want to see that again. What happened? It could have been a slip, but these guys are so damn good, you just don't know. Like, it could have just been a move.
Right.
Like Liger got the upper hand on him. But no, this was a good match. It did suck at the beginning, like Flair coming out, and then they mentioned that Savage was taken out. He's been escorted out of the building, coming up like then the Flair stuff, and it's just like I just felt like they don't care about these matches. Yeah, Bischoff was smart to bring these people in, but they didn't care. And Liger at this point was the man. Like, you don't disrespect this guy by not paying attention to his match. It's pretty damn stupid to fly him in just to disrespect him.
Yep.
Bischoff could take the credit for bringing him in, but he did him no favors for the first year and a half, 2 years that they're there.
No, and it kills me because it's like they realize their talent. That's why they're on the show. They wouldn't give them this time if they thought that Hacksaw, or no disrespect to him, but some of these other guys that are established names that maybe are over the hill to a degree, they're not going to cut it compared to you got to get some of your fresh talent out there, like a Dean Malenko or eventually Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, it's Jushin Liger here while he's in town. But the problem is, it's like, here's our show, and let's get these guys over. But you know what? We need to get more Ric Flair, Randy Savage storylines, so let's do that during their match as well. It's doing no favors to them at all. It doesn't help whatsoever. And what really upsets me is the very next segment is a Ric Flair promo. So is it really necessary to outshine, or not outshine, but kind of like intrude on the Malenko Liger match with Ric Flair segments when he's going to cut a promo right after it anyway?
Right. Why couldn't you just have Flair come out, cut his promo, and then say, you know what, I'm going to spend more Macho's money the rest of the night on Nitro when I take my seat over here.
Well, people
Like, how
knew
hard is
better
that
than
to
this,
sell?
Steve, 10 years ago. Let's go back 10 years real quick. Sam Houston will get a squash match on World Championship Wrestling on a Saturday night, right? A squash match by an undercard guy, Sam Houston. 3-4 minutes, whatever. And then you would go to the Horseman promo with J.J. Dillon, Flair, Arn, Tully, whoever. You didn't have Flair, Arn, and Tully and whoever interrupt the Sam Houston match to cut the promo. And this is way better than a squash, right? This is Liger and Malenko. If you're going to cut the promo anyway, why are you interrupting the other segment to get the other guys over? Everybody has to get over. So I just don't understand this logic here in 96.
Yeah, I don't get it either. Every segment is there for a reason. It's not to promote the following segment or the segment that happened before. Yeah, you can talk about it because it was a big time thing. Like, Savage just beat the shit out of a ref, which you didn't see that very often like that. If ever.
Yeah. It definitely
so
it woke me up and it entertained me. And Savage being Savage, it entertained me more because it felt more realistic.
But I think you should have just went straight to the back after the commercial and showing him getting escorted out and put in the police car. And then you come in to do your match, and then, like you said, have the promo, and then he can go to the table now that it's safe that he's out there. Or you can have the match and then go to the back and show or have the footage shown while Flair is cutting his promo so you can see that it's safe or whatever. But you don't have to do all this at once. So Bischoff announces that he's getting escorted out of the building in handcuffs. Flair comes out and takes over at his table, and he's eating there. And then the first 5 minutes of this match, I don't even know how long it was, but the first 3 or 4 minutes of the match, it's all about Savage and Flair. And like you said, Hogan's gone, so I figured they would pay attention.
Right. They just found something else to replace Hogan with.
Yep. They just filled it in with the next top.
They've kind of already figured out their format of what they want. It's like, it doesn't have to be Hogan, but it's got to be their main eventers overtaking these other guys, which is unfortunate. Because, as I pointed out, up next is, call the hotline, Mean Gene Okerlund with Ric Flair, Woman, and Leather Liz. Ric Flair and Savage will be a tag team at Slamboree because that's realistic. Ric Flair says he will win the Battle Bowl overall. We'll see what happens there. Woman says Flair will end up on top. Double entendre there by Woman. Flair acknowledges Deborah McMichael, who's once again sitting, I won't say at ringside, but in the aisleway there, perfectly for Flair to offer her a glass of champagne, Steve. Flair's been kind of hitting on Deborah here over the last few weeks and offers her a glass of champagne this week, which she accepts, but then dumps out on the floor. So Mongo supporting that very much. Ric Flair keeps taunting the Macho Man, though, during the promo and pissing off Mongo in the interim. So we got Flair and Macho feud boiling, but he's kind of setting up for that feud with Steve McMichael at the same time.
Yeah, this is where it really kind of hammered home. Like, he was talking about Robin Leach or something. I think Gene brought up Robin Leach, and he's like, he's not good enough to be invited to a party that Flair throws. And he's like, I'm going to show you all the men what makes the Nature Boy go round, and it's Liz and Woman. He wants Deborah. He's like, when it's all said and done, she'll find out why they call me the all-around cowboy. And it's just like, he's too happy-go-lucky when he just lost the WCW title.
Yeah, a week ago. Yeah, you're right.
You go back to the old days, and if he lost his title, he's throwing tirades.
He'd be livid. Yeah, he'd be out of his mind.
Going
Ric Flair without the title belt is not acceptable. You're right, Steve.
He's too busy chasing skirts, and that's not the Nature Boy.
Well, he did do that, but that was on his off time.
It was secondary.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely. It was secondary.
WCW world go around. It was what made him tick as a person. But at the end of the day, like you said, without the belt, Ric Flair is not Ric Flair. So I need my belt back.
Right. And then I'll worry about the ladies.
He just said Giant got lucky, but I'm going to take out Savage at Slamboree. Like, he doesn't even care about the belt. And I get it. I mean, he's well past being on top, but I just don't. I'm not a fan of this version of Ric Flair.
No, it's like it's a completely different version of Ric Flair, and he's going along with it because he was always kind of a team player.
Yeah, he's not going to say no to these things, which it is what it is. But I don't know. I felt like 1985-86 Ric Flair could have really helped somewhat WCW at this time, especially with Hogan gone. Like, he had an opportunity to really stand out and do something different compared to what he's been doing. And he's just going through the motions of what he's been doing, and it's not very entertaining.
You know what is entertaining? Blood Runs Cold vignettes, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Blood Runs Cold coming to WCW. I feel like pretty soon we're going to get a debut date. It's going to be listed here in these vignettes. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen, and they postponed it for several more months.
I like this idea. I don't even care. I do not like. People don't understand like how insanely popular Mortal Kombat was when it first came out.
If they had done this 2 years ago, this might have made them some decent money by non-wrestling fans. Just Sega Genesis marks, I feel.
Oh my God, man. Mortal Kombat was next level. People talk about GTA getting shut down or whatever. Weren't they doing the same stuff for Mortal Kombat because of the violence?
Oh, Mortal Kombat, yeah, you could turn the blood on and off. Yeah, the fatalities, the babalities eventually, all the crazy stuff, all the buttons you had to learn, like, oh, you got to press like 17 buttons to do this. Oh, God, we learned it anyway. We would learn it to play those games when they came out. Oh, my God, what good times. I would go to my cousin's house. He had the Sega, so I didn't have the Sega, so it would be over his house for the Mortal Kombat, and we would totally have weekends of fun with that show.
I love the commercial. I love the commercial for like the very first one. They're like, it's Mortal Kombat Day, and the music is great. The voiceover is just excellent, and just good times.
Even if they had like Scorpion and Sub-Zero and Lizard or whatever it was, they were all the same exact character in different colors. I mean, it was the times though. It's like,
oh yeah, I mean, it was huge.
Get over here.
Yeah, it was very popular and very. It was in the news because I'm pretty sure. Like,
they had to have made a good chunk of change. Whoever released that one,
yeah.
Unfortunately, that's all we get so far right now. Blood Runs Cold. We don't know what's happening with that right now. Even Dave Meltzer thinks it's freaking Hall and Nash at this point.
How?
I don't. It's because it's Dave Meltzer, and even though he reports a lot of facts, Steve, he also makes a lot of shit up. Believe it or not. So everybody tries to be his friend, but at the same time, they also just kind of tell it like it is, and I'm just going to tell it like it is there. Davey boy.
Makes shit up? No way.
Yeah, well.
Are they reenacting Oz, like a frozen version of Oz? Are they going to do Yeti and Oz together?
Oh, wouldn't that be tremendous? Oz and Yeti. He thought out! Says Tony Schiavone at World War III. Anyways, we'll move on. With this episode of Nitro, it's Sting taking on Lord Steven Regal, only 1 week removed from the parking lot fight. This week, Steve's accompanied by Jeeves, who was the former WCW, no, not World Championship Wrestling, Wildcat Willie. Yes, Regal's manager, or valet, if you will, was the former Wildcat Willie on the Disney shows, the former mascot of WCW. He's now just Jeeves, accompanying Regal to ringside. Regal looking rough from last week, I wrote, as he comes to the ring. It's back and forth action, solid wrestling, but just the basics, but so good, Steve. Just Regal is just so, why am I saying this in 2021? Regal is just so good. Just a good wrestler. And last week he was slinging hubcaps, but this week he's mat wrestling. Everything doesn't feel right about this. We go into a commercial break. We come back. Sting makes the big comeback, does a fucking Japanese arm drag by the Stinger of all people, but he misses the Stinger splash. Regal tries a double underhook suplex. Sting counters into a back drop of sorts, lands on top of Regal, makes the cover, gets the pin. 8 minutes and 30 seconds. I wrote, solid match. Regal called that finish because I don't think Sting came up with that. But this is 1 week after the parking lot fight. I said, really? This really kind of angered me, Steve. 90 people under contract here in WCW by this point, and Regal is out here to put over Sting. Regal's out here to do the job 1 week after the street fight. You had something here with Regal, I felt, and you took it away from him because WCW.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because the Bruiser left, and that was going to be the feud going forward. And now that he's gone, they don't really have anything for him, which sucks for him. But also, wouldn't it be 2 weeks ago since Nitro was taped last week?
Yes, but I mean, it aired last week.
Right.
I mean, WWF taped shit for 4 and 5 weeks. I mean, it's still last week it aired. You know what you're doing.
I got you.
No, I'm not arguing with you. I'm getting pissed off at them again all over again.
Yeah,
this guy put on a fuck of a match last week on your program. He won. Build it up. If you want him to job to Sting, I'm not saying he should be beating Sting. He shouldn't even be wrestling Sting at this point. You want him to job to Sting? Put it on a fucking pay-per-view or a Clash or something down the line. You just built this guy up. You don't yank that out from under him a week later for no fucking reason whatsoever. Sting beating Regal didn't elevate Sting any more than he was already elevated, was my point. But it hurt Regal.
Yeah, it did. It definitely did, because like, what's the point of the parking lot brawl? Like, it's completely useless. He just did this great match, or great fight, I should say. He's a tough guy. He showed it. He put himself through hell, and then the very next week he's jobbing out in a regular match to Sting. When you had, like you said, he had something with that brawling type style that they could have done something with him, and they just totally ignored it. It's just, I think that's one of the biggest things that bothers me with wrestling in general. It doesn't matter who it is, don't matter the company, nothing. Like, when something happens, when you do something for no reason, like, it feels like that parking lot match was completely useless. It did nothing because they didn't do anything with it.
Well,
so it's just a one-off. It's just there, and that's, I don't know what. So to me, like, my thought process is, why even have that match? Why even make them go through something like that if you're not going to do anything with it? It makes no sense.
Dude, you're preaching to the choir, as they say. But here's my deal. And Kevin Sullivan, he was the booker for the majority of this era. I'm not sure really who was at this point without going and looking, but he had a hand in all this shit, right?
Yeah.
Bischoff has went on record. He did not. Bischoff did not book. I mean, he might have had a say, like, yeah, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, but he didn't go through the semantics. He didn't book Nitro. He didn't book, all this shit. Here's my problem. Kevin Sullivan's been in the business since the beginning of the 1970s. He's from Boston. Yeah, he wasn't in the WWF in the prime years ever. But he worked in the WWF in the 1970s for quite a long period of time. So he worked the New York territory. He got over his hell in the Florida territory. He worked for Crockett in Georgia. He turned heel from babyface to heel. He did that in Georgia. I mean, the dude's been everywhere. He's done everything. He gets it. He's done Alabama. He's done Smoky Mountain, ECW. I mean, the guy has done everything. He gets it. He understands business. I have no doubt that he understands how to book a territory. If he's in control of this, he knows better than this. It feels like even Kevin Sullivan at this point has cashed out. It's like, these are the 10 guys I need to put over, and nobody else matters. So it's like, yeah, Regal went over last week. I was telling this story, but now Finlay didn't really get injured. The story they tell here is Finlay got glass in his eye, and he's out, but he'll be back. But the real story is he was leaving. He was going to go work out of Vons, for the out of Vons territory, the CWA over in Austria and Germany and shit. So they knew he was leaving. You put Regal over, obviously, because Finlay's leaving for at least what you thought was a few months. There's no reason to put Sting over Regal the very next week. It doesn't make sense. This is somebody selecting a very short amount of guys to get over and fuck everyone else. Malenko, Liger, Regal. It just sucks. It sucks.
Do you think, like, Hulk Hogan
doesn't know who these people are?
No. I meant, like, because I remember Kevin Sullivan saying, like, his idea for Hogan was feeding him all his buddies.
Yeah. Make him comfortable. Yes.
Making him comfortable with me.
Yep.
So he trusts me.
Yep.
And then at that point, I can take the turn to the right and do something that he may not be comfortable with, but he's going to trust me because I just spent the last 8 months feeding him all his buddies. So do you think that because of that, or just in general, the way Hulk Hogan has his thumb on this entire company, just ignore the fact that it's Steve Regal. Like, who cares? Like, that's not the point I'm making. Like, do you think he's so focused on not rocking the boat with Hulk Hogan that it's making everything else suffer? It kind of goes in line with what you just said about, I got 10 people I got to worry about. And
I think it indirectly, I feel, I wasn't there, I can't say, and I don't know if Kevin would agree with this today, but I think it indirectly affected this shit. Because Hogan's gone. Hogan's not paying. Hogan's not watching this episode of Nitro to save his life. He could give a flying fuck less what's going on while he's not there. I would imagine. So Regal jobbing to Sting, yeah, Regal should job to Sting every day of the week. If you go Sting versus Regal, who's going to win? I'd say Sting. I'm not going to even question that. But why are you booking the fucking match is my question. Why is Regal being put in this situation? You have 90 guys under contract. Why the fuck are you picking the guy that just beat a guy in a fucking parking lot last week? Oh, it'll put Sting over. No, it won't. Sting is Sting. He's already fucking number 2 or 3 or whatever you want to call him.
He doesn't even have to have a match, and he's going to stay over, and he's going to be ready to go for his title match against the Giant.
Yeah, so
it's one of those things. Like,
I don't really know, man.
Like when I worked on it in an office, and we moved to at home. We're working at home, and one of the first things, like the DPE, which is what he does, he basically is a boss. He's one of the top bosses within our company. When we first moved to at home, he was like, check in on your people and make sure they're staying focused and staying on task, because when you're at home, you're in a silo and you can kind of get lazy, and then once you get on that path, it's almost impossible to get out of it. So he's like, you got to stay on top of your people, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and keep your eye on them, which makes sense. But we're creatures of habit. Once you get in the groove of doing one thing, and this is what you're worried about, it's really, really difficult to get out of that or move past that.
No, and I feel like it was like, these are our half dozen guys we're going to push, and that's all like, the show's
he's
about.
Done so much shit where it's just been nothing but Hogan. Maybe he's forgotten. Oh, shit, you know what? That was dumb. He just put his life on the line last week, and now we're jobbing him out to Sting for absolutely no reason at all. I messed up there. Like, that'd be my process, is that he's just been so used to pushing Hogan, and that's it, that nothing else matters. And
I want to move on. I want to move on to this show, but I'm gonna take it completely left turn here for like another minute. Left turn Albuquerque, as Bugs Bunny used to say. Wow, that's a throwback. But just for another 1 minute, real quick. Just earlier today, I was having a conversation. We were watching some old. My son was in the room. My oldest, actually, 20 years old, junior in college. And Techno Team 2000 came on the screen, 2000, from the future. Bill Watts' son, Eric, and Chad Fortune, the future Kiss Demon and things, we're out there wrestling. And actually, it's on one of these episodes of Raw they wrestle, I believe, too. But when I was talking to him, I mentioned that this was a shitty future gimmick. It was Sean Royal and whatnot, back in the 80s, Dusty Rhodes had booked, what's her name?
The New Breed?
New Breed, sorry. So it was the New Breed back in, what was that, 86, 87 or whatever. They came in from the future. And Dusty was Booker, right, Steve? So naturally, whenever you saw anybody have a feud, Jimmy Valiant could be feuded with Paul Jones, and somehow Dusty's names would get brought up in the promos. You get an underneath guy cutting a promo, Dusty Rhodes' name would get just randomly brought up in the promo. The New Breed would proclaim that Dusty Rhodes was the president in 2000 or whatever. President of the United States, Dusty Rhodes. Now, Dusty was Booker at the time, so he had to get a little chuckle. I'm going to make myself president, if you will, maybe. So Dusty's getting a chuckle. Dusty's getting himself over in these guys' other shits. But at the same time, there's still 10 feuds, 10 storylines, 10 matches, whatever shit. So he's still doing Dusty things where Kevin's doing whatever he's doing here, but he's still doing the right shit in other aspects of the show. And it feels like Kevin needs to understand, let Dean and Liger be Dean and Liger. Don't, interrupt that with Flair, because Flair's cutting a promo next segment, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Dusty's president. Of course,
President
that shit.
President of the United States of America, baby. if you will. Love it. Sweet Sapphire, my vice president, if you will.
Of course he booked that.
So we go on with this episode of Nitro, though. It's WCW champion, the Giant, scheduled to take on Total Package Lex Luger, but Lex Luger doesn't come out when he's announced. Where the hell is Lex Luger? No. Everything goes silent, and ho! Hacksaw Jim Duggan, what a replacement, replaces Lex Luger here for this WCW championship match on Monday Nitro, this big giant title match. I wrote, where's Luger? We get Duggan? Bleh. Shitty bait and switch, which I do feel was a really shitty bait and switch on the fans who were attending, or not attending, but turning to TNT to watch this show. I'm going to see the Giant and Luger? Oh, this might be another title change. No, it's Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who did have a fairly decent match with the Giant a few months ago on Nitro, but not this time. Duggan attacks the Giant as he's trying to climb over the top rope into the ring. He still has his belt on, which made me laugh because he's like literally beating this dude while he's wearing the belt still. Giant has to like basically no-sell this as the referee holds him back. I don't know if Duggan jumped the gun or what happened here, but Duggan has to like back off and then attack him a second time when the bell rings. So now we have a match. Giant again no-sells. And at that point, once Giant's actually in the ring, the match is all downhill from there, which is basically from the beginning. Giant beats down Hacksaw. He misses a flying ass bump into the corner, for lack of a better term. Has to sell like, oh my God, I hurt my back. I hurt my ass. Ah! Duggan still wants to come back for offense, but he can't slam the Giant. So the Giant continues his quote-unquote offense here. It's not a pretty match at all. Duggan finally, he can't take it anymore. Duggan realizes he cannot defeat the Giant. He can't even get any offense on the Giant. So he digs down into those trunks, goes over Great Granny's tape for the tape fist. He starts wrapping up his tape. He's wrapping up his fist with the tape, but nope, not enough time. He turns around into a shitty choke slam. Not enough height there, Hacksaw. Sorry, brother. I love you, but this was not a pretty match at all. A squash match, to say the least. Jim clearly didn't even want to jump for the choke slam here. The Giant gets the win on a choke slam. 3 minutes, 14 seconds. The Giant attacks Duggan again after the match. Hits a choke slam again. This one much better. It looked like a normal choke slam, so good for Hacksaw for getting up the second time anyway. Then out comes the backstage guys. Here comes Cobra. If you know what I'm talking about there. Cobra takes the choke slam driver, as I wrote it here, because the Giant just drives his head through the mat. The Cuban Assassin even out here, Fidel Sierra, he eats a choke slam, and Alex Wright with another good choke slam on him. So the Giant wipes out 4 guys. No problem there. And out comes Ric Flair. Woo! And he's got a wooden chair. So, the first thing out of my mind when I saw that, Steve, was, oh, this chair's breaking. Which it does, because you don't see wooden chairs in 1996. Ric Flair breaks the chair over the Giant, which he knows sells again as well. So the Giant was only staggered, and he went for the choke slam on Flair. That's when Sting finally comes out and clips the knee of the Giant off the top rope. And it was completely across the ring. The Giant was nowhere near where Sting climbed up. I was like, is Sting going to make this? Because we've seen some shit recently, Steve, where guys just start making these leaps. But Sting does connect. The Giant still half-ass sells it. Sting with like a half dozen chop blocks, punches, a really shitty top rope double axe handle thingy, I wrote. And then knocks the Giant down finally, though, after like 46 blows, and locks in the Scorpion Death Lock. Jimmy Hart from behind nails the Stinger, who's tag team partners with Luger, who's managed by Jimmy Hart. But Jimmy Hart here nails Sting from behind with the megaphone, which Sting no-sells, so why let go of the hold Stinger? But he does. And then Luger runs in finally at the end of the Nitro show after all this nonsense. Lex Luger, who was supposed to be challenging for the title, runs in wearing street clothes and a Halliburton. because that was the thing to do when you were an upper class wrestler back then. You basically carried your shit in a IRS briefcase. So he comes out in with a Halliburton in hand. Giant and Jimmy Hart back off, teasing the idea that Jimmy Hart didn't want the Giant to tangle with Lex Luger. A lot of questions to be raised here. We go back to the match, though, Steve. Giant and Duggan, not a good match. And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a very good match. Pretty shitty bait and switch, like you said.
Yeah, they knew better. They knew what they were doing before they did it, so it was really shitty.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, there's really not much to say. The big part was the angle itself afterwards. I guess now would be a good time to send thoughts and prayers to Duggan. He just had surgery for his prostate cancer.
Yeah, it's no offense to Duggan here. It wasn't a good segment. But I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers to him. Hopefully get back up and going soon. I don't mind Duggan. I never really had an issue with Duggan. I always, for whatever reason, he's just one of those dudes that the crowd bought into.
Was always over.
Always over. Always.
Him and Honky Tonk, man. I put it right up there. Always over. Duggan more so on the national scale, but Honky, he could draw and he could get over on the indies for like 15 years after he ever was anything because he was the gimmick. But Hacksaw, I mean, you can see, even like you said, even in WCW or when he would come back to WWE every once in a while, the gimmick.
He's always over.
Yeah, he's always over. Yeah.
It's tremendous to have that longevity. I think too he found something, the hoe and the finger and the tough guy and the 2x4, like it's relatable to a lot of people.
And people don't realize a lot of that stuff came with him, like from the Watts territory from that last year he was with Watts, because he's been there since '82, I feel like, but he'd been there for so long. I mean, he developed himself over several years there, but that last year he was in the UWF and Mid-South and whatever. That's where we got that Americana Duggan and just, the tough guy and all that stuff. But it really developed, obviously, beyond that here in the WWF and obviously WCW now.
Yeah, but no, the segment wasn't very good, but the aftermath was good. The only thing I don't like, why is Ric Flair coming out? I get it. You got beat for the belt, but why are you going out here with a chair to hit
it just felt like a weird random thing in the middle of this post-match thing. It just felt very random.
Especially when the very next guy out is Sting. So it looks like Sting is coming to Ric Flair's rescue, which makes absolutely no sense. Yeah, so that didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, what are we doing?
I felt like it should be one or the other. Does Ric Flair come out and break the chair and he no-sells it, or does Sting come out and both of them, it really
Sting
threw me off. Like you're telling two stories at the same time.
Yeah, it makes more sense for Sting to be out there because you're building up Slamboree for the title.
Yeah. Right.
Flair has clearly moved on from the Giant. All he did was say he got lucky. Then he was worried about shagging Deborah and spending Macho's money. So why does he care about what the Giant's doing right now? Why even mess with him? He should have stayed at his table, watched all the action unfold, and let Sting handle the business. And then obviously Lex Luger comes in at the end there with his suitcase and gym clothes on. So I don't know. 2 weeks in a row, the main event's kind of been lackluster with the rest of the card being pretty decent.
Yeah, I actually saw Lex do that before legitimately against Ludwig Borga, running his clothes to wrestle Ludwig because he was late to the show. So it was kind of funny to see this here. We close out the show as time's running out on the show. Mean Gene Okerlund wants to talk to Sting and Lex Luger. Sting calls out Luger. Where has he been? Where the hell were you? You had a title match scheduled. What's going on? Luger says, why would he miss 2 straight title shots? Doesn't make any sense as they continue the Sting and Luger storyline. I know you said you had some notes here you want to talk about. To that I ask, why does Luger do anything he does though, Steve? He asks Sting, why would I skip 2 title shots? Lex, you do a lot of weird shit. So why would you do anything? And at that point, we're out of time! If it was Tony Schiavone anyway. And that's the end of the episode. As we learn next week, it's supposed to be the Giant again, defending the title against Luger if he shows up. The Steiners against Public Enemy, and Chris Benoit versus David Taylor, and Flair versus Michael Wall Street, VK Wall Street, whatever he is at this point. But those are supposedly the matches for next week. So we're out of time here. You got any shit you want to talk about here with Sting and Luger?
No, I can't remember when exactly it was said, but I think Mongo is making the point, like, Sting better watch his back because as soon as Luger gets the opportunity, he would lay him out with the briefcase. And Bischoff was like, no, I don't think he would. He's not that type of person. He wouldn't do that to his friend. And then like Bischoff's even kind of starting to think that Luger is telling the truth. So, like I said, this feud and this storyline has gone on for quite a long time. And now the announcers are kind of even changing up their thought process on what they think is going to happen and that sort of stuff.
So let's look at the segment of the night then. Is it Dean Malenko versus Jushin Liger? Is it Sting versus Regal in a solid TV match? Is it the Macho Madness storyline? What beat the shit out of the referee, Hugh Morris, and everything? What was your favorite part of this show?
I really like the Savage angle just because Macho is so believable, like you mentioned. But I really like the Malenko Liger match. Liger is so cool to watch. He's so unique and different and fun. So by this point, like you've had cruiserweight matches, but you didn't get them all the time. Like every show didn't have one. So when you did get one, and especially with somebody like Liger, you pay attention. It was cool. That was my favorite part.
Yeah, I wrote my first two things I wrote on here were Dean versus Liger or Sting and Regal. I don't think till today did I add the Macho Man segment just because I realized how fun it was, like what he did and everything like that. But obviously my initial thing was Dean and Liger. It was just different, and we got it. It came on our TV. It wasn't just the names. It was a good match. It was a good segment of the TV show. It brings me back 30 years ago. 30 years. Oh, my God. I'm so old. In elementary school or beginning of junior high, what they call middle school now, Liger's video wrestling Brian Pillman, Christmas Night in the Omni, 1991. First time I had ever seen Liger, well, besides Starrcade, or I think Starrcade was after Christmas night that year, actually. But watching that and going to school and kids around me going, oh, man, he could beat El Gigante, which people laugh and chuckle at based on the name and things like that. But they're saying this cruiserweight eventually be known as a cruiserweight could beat a 7'7" guy. They're basically their mindset was he can beat anybody because, oh my God, the shit he can do. We'd never seen any of that before, right? In Christmas 1991, the right. Shit that Jushin Liger was doing against Brian Pillman there, and then the great match we got to see at Super Brawl followed the following year. So it sticks with me 30 years later. I remember kids I haven't talked to in 30 years saying, oh my God, he could beat El Gigante. Of all the names, instead of Ric Flair's Sting, it was El Gigante because he was a giant. So you go to the monster. He could beat anybody of any size because he just is amazing. And then we get Liger coming back here in 96, working Dean here on TV. It was a good match, so I got to go with you. It wasn't the greatest thing of all time, but it was my favorite thing on the show. So I'm down with that as well. Dean Malenko and Jushin Liger, my favorite segment of the night as well. We're going into WWF Monday Night Raw. Before we do, just two quick pieces of notes. First, WWE going on a Kuwait tour. The news is all 5 shows in Kuwait this coming week reportedly have more than 20,000 tickets sold per night, which should make it the biggest tour in terms of attendance for the WWF in a long time. And that was always nice to have in their back pocket, even when business was down. Let's do a tour, because you would go to countries you never really worked that often, and you would sell out because whether it was England or Germany or Italy or wherever you were going, Spain, or in this case, Kuwait, for I think the first time ever, you would likely sell out, or at least you'd do pretty good money.
Yeah. Smart.
And then also, there's some news on what I labeled Destrucity. Steve, I don't know if you know what that is. I'm sure you will before 1996 is over. Jim Hellwig, who you may know as the Ultimate Warrior, has created Ultimate Creations, and they have come to terms with Titan Sports. They've joined together, Steve, in a business partnership where Titan will promote Warriors Gym in Phoenix and use it as a WWF training center, supposedly, and also promote the Warriors' other merchandise, including his comic book. In return, you know what the WWF gets? The Warrior hasn't left yet.
Yeah. On paper, it sounds like a really good idea.
Warrior Man here. That's what I want to see.
No, it makes sense. I can't bag on it. It's the Ultimate Warrior, man. You've had so many issues with him before. Why would you even trust him to do something like this.
Well, you know what? They get what they sign up for here. That's for damn sure.
That's what I don't understand. Know your audience, huh?
It's a different year, pal. He's a different warrior.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's in a ponytail with a fucking baseball cap and sunglasses talking about Warrior Man here. Yeah, it is a different fucking one. That was it. I was done.
Not even that.
Oh, okay.
I was done the day he came out on Raw, and his face paint was just black. Like he just had the black warrior face. You remember that? I think it was when he's in the ring with Lawler.
Kicking, with the paint, with the portrait, yeah.
It's just all black, and I'm like,
cussing, and he's cussing.
You don't even give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
You gave up.
No, you just wanted to make money.
Yeah, that's all that was. This is a cash grab.
Absolutely.
You know what's crazy? He gets a bigger cash grab a couple years from now. Can't wait for that one.
Yeah, that's some money. That's some money for sure.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Too bad he's not still around.
Oh, WCW.
Somebody needs to do like a case study on the Ultimate Warrior.
I don't even know how you would. And be accurate anyway. I don't know. We're going to go on to our last show of this episode of The Warfare, though. It's Monday Night Raw for May 6, 1996, taped last week. It's April 29th in Sioux City, Iowa. We kick things off with a quick video of Ray the Crippler Stevens passing away, like we mentioned on Nitro. Born September 1935, died 1996 at the age of 60 in a heart attack. Ray the Crippler Stevens passes away, so even Vince acknowledges him. And his run, unfortunately, at the end of his career there in the early 80s in the WWF, we kick things off with a hell of a match. Mark Marrow with Sable in his corner, taking on the 1-2-3 Kid with Ted DiBiase in his corner. This is a rematch from the In Your House pay-per-view, the free-for-all of the pay-per-view. Anyway, Triple H actually cost Mark Marrow, or actually cost the Kid the match by disqualification, interfering. So now we get the rematch. Triple H here at ringside on commentary for this match. So they're working on a Triple H Marrow feud continuing based on Marrow taking Sable from him. Marrow early on gets the offense, does a nosedive plancha straight on his face on the outside of the ring. Slingshot splash back inside, but lands on the 1-2-3 Kid's knees. And then we get heat on Mark Marrow as the Kid applies the Forever Sleeper, as it just seems to go on forever. And through a commercial break, back from break, Mark Marrow makes the comeback, and the Kid takes a nasty flying bump over the top rope to the floor. I wrote, no wonder he has nagging injuries. He has taken some of the most ridiculous bumps from the ring to the floor, going all the way back to Global. That's how I remember when Global against Jerry Lynn and the nonsense bump off the top rope onto the stage. But it's went on since then, Razor tossing him through the ropes. And this one here again against Mark Marrow. The match continues. Marrow nails the somersault plancha outside onto the Kid. The ref then back inside the ring gets distracted as Marrow goes to the top rope. Triple H crotches him. The Kid climbs up and tries for a superplex, but Marrow falls on top. Mark Marrow this time gets the win in 11 minutes. Solid TV match.
Yeah, my first note was like, this should be a solid match on paper, and it delivered. I thought it was really good. He took that drop. He ran and did like a running drop kick that sent Kid over the top, but it's unfortunate for guys like the Kid and some of those smaller guys back then. Like, this is what they had to do to get themselves over.
Yeah,
they're really good wrestlers, but they had to sell and take bumps that big guys just didn't have to take because big guys are over off their size, whereas these guys are trying to establish themselves.
That's how you got noticed. Yeah.
So what's McFoley's excuse? But anyway,
good call.
No, it's unfortunate because you're about to read some news here on the Kid, and it sucks, but it is what it is. But yeah, this is a hell of a match. Both guys worked really well together, and solid stuff.
Yeah. So
I got a question real quick though.
Absolutely, yeah.
You pick up so Hunter made a comment. They talking about Sable and Marrow's stealing her from him, from Hunter.
Yeah.
And Hunter was like, if you're going to steal from someone, it might as well be me, which is a great line because this just that's what a snob would say. Well, you might as well steal from the rich. But the very next thing, Lawler said, Hunter's name is the only thing that's long. And Hunter just starts laughing because he didn't let Lawler finish.
Yeah.
But Lawler finished, and he's like his yachts, his boats, his limos, and that sort of stuff. But As soon as he said it's not the only thing that's long, you can hear Hunter break character, and he does like a chuckle. I laughed. I thought it was hilarious. But
no, yeah, I didn't pick up on that. But that was classic Lawler. He always had a punchline to it to cover his shit. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It was funny. That was great.
So Miro pins 1-2-3 Kid here. Of course, Sid's already gone from the company. They were trying to build up on the big and small tag team there with Sid and the Kid going into the year, but Sid's gone, and the 1-2-3 Kid, DeMeltz reports, will be out of action for a while now. Steve, after some May tapings he did some tapings for Raw, and I think he's got a couple of matches on Superstars as well. But he showed up in no condition to work for a Superstars taping coming up here in May, and will be out for at least several weeks. I don't believe he ever returns to the WWF until X-Pac. DeMeltz reports the Kid may have suffered yet another concussion, which would be at least around number 13 in 1996 during the European tour. And when the numbers get that high, it's very serious business because the brain just can't take that many concussions without damage. Yes, we knew that in 1996, people. There is serious concern about his future. Of course, we know Sean Waltman would return. He would work WCW. He would come back as X-Pac for many, many years. He would get X-Pac heat. He would coin that term. So, I mean, he's around for a lot longer after this. But this is pretty much it for the 1-2-3 Kid here in May between Raw and Superstars till X-Pac anyway.
Yeah, and I think even when he makes the jump, he doesn't do a lot of wrestling. Initially, right. I mean, he did some, but not a lot. So that's insane to think about. Like in '96, he had at least 13 concussions, and he went on. He's still wrestling. So I mean, Lord knows how many he's picked up along the way. He could be up in the 50s. Who knows? So yeah, people act like we just now figured out about concussions, or that's what the NFL would want you to think. But that's why it always baffled my mind. Like even if we didn't know, something has to tell you inside your head that taking unprotected chair shots to the head is not a good idea.
Well, the word concussion wouldn't exist if you didn't know something was wrong, right? Am I right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, I just don't, we didn't know any better. Bullshit. I don't buy that as an excuse to take.
Yeah. And
like Foley taking like 20 unprotected shots at the Royal Rumble. That makes what in your right mind can tell you? Well,
he does blame Rock for those. Sense. He does blame Rock for those. But yeah, I get what you're saying. No, those are the nastiest things. But besides Salmon and Balls Mahoney, those and Masato Tanaka maybe, those are the nastiest chair shots I've ever seen on Earth. Yeah, for sure.
He blames The Rock for that?
Yeah, he said Rock took some liberties. He didn't say it in a mean way because I think Rocky took some liberties. I mean, he said that many, many years ago.
Well, The Rock did lay some in.
Yeah, Rock was Shamrock. Not. Yeah, you need to go back and watch The Rock swinging chairs. He wasn't shy by far.
No, he was not. No. He laid him in. I guess that was the business back then. I don't know, but I'm glad that is long gone. I don't care what anybody says.
I get upset that I know somebody's not going to get hit over the head with a chair. Like, he's not going to hit over the chair. He's going to hit over the back. Because they might set a segment up or a spot up where they're going to do it. And then I'm like, well, I know he's not going to do it. That upsets me because I know it's not going to happen. At the same time, I don't need to see it 40 times. If they do it once or twice a year, I'm not against that.
No, I'm not either.
But yeah, the way it was.
I would do what they did in AEW with the very soft, folding chair or whatever, even though it messed up.
Right.
I still think that'd be the way to go. Gimmick a chair to where it's
like that broken wooden chair Ric Flair hit over the chair.
Just gimmick a chair with like a cookie sheet or something.
If you will, baby. So this episode of Raw goes on. We see a clip from Superstars. Remember last week on Raw, Savio Vega challenged Stone Cold Steve Austin to a Caribbean strap match at In Your House. Well, Ted DiBiase, the manager of Stone Cold, agrees to the match. Austin versus Vega in a strap match. If Vega agrees, if he loses the match, he will be Ted's chauffeur. Because that's just Vince McMahon for you folks. We go on. Vignette time featuring an ex-wife. Ugh, this is no. I hate
bad.
This is not good. Vignette time featuring an quote unquote ex-wife of a former pro wrestler. That's how it's worded. She claims
there's former pro wrestlers.
And it said, yes, there's former pro wrestlers. This is 1996, so maybe he retired in like 82, 85, 89. I don't know. Well, no, because Sean would have to wrestle. So yeah, well, yeah, they probably are. Anyways, I'm curious who this girl is. Anywho, she's in that like dark, shadowy thing, so you can hear her talking, but you can't see her face. So it's like old school Unsolved Mysteries type shit. You can't really tell who she is. She says that Shawn Michaels is a homewrecker, and he ruined her marriage and her life. One day when her husband was on the road, Shawn schmoozed her way into her home. And you know the rest, Steve. She does claim that Shawn is the best she's ever had. Wow, really? And it was a torrid affair. Her husband then found out about this affair and went on to lose to Shawn Michaels the next time they fought. So she claims that Shawn Michaels used her, Steve, and she doesn't want to see it happen again with Diana Smith. And I wrote, was this Sonny? Was this Skip? Of course, she's still there and he's still there, so I guess not. But we do know the story between Tammy Sitch and Shawn Michaels. I love when this segment ends that Vince even admits how shitty this is by saying, our producers will do anything for a rating. So
I was wondering if you go pick up on that.
Yeah, I picked up on it. And it was even Vince admits this is silly nonsense.
This is sleazy. This is
shitting on himself. Our producers will do anything for a rating. Because it was nonsense. This ex-wife shitting on Shawn Michaels. Was it Tatanka's wife? I mean, everybody took a turn on her, right? I suppose at this point, I have no idea. But yeah, so that's where we are with this Davey Boy and Shawn Michaels gimmick at this point.
Yeah, I don't even really care to talk about this.
Yeah, there's not much to say. It's not that good.
We'll move on.
I just stare at the ground when these segments air. It's like, what am I doing? I don't know. Just get to the match, guys. Let's go to the match with the double pin. Yeah.
Yeah, classic. They're not bad matches, though.
No. But the shit leading in was irrelevant.
They deserve. They deserve better than what
they do. They deserve a better story, which is as simple as I'm the British Bulldog and I deserve a title shot. That's it. Yep. It writes itself, guys. There's not much to it.
Yep.
We continue on with this show. Fatu trying to make a difference, taking on the British Bulldog, accompanied by Diana and Jim Cornette in his corner. Bulldog tries to go after the head of Fatu to no avail. Have you not been watching wrestling for the last at least 5 years in the company? Fatu then dominates the match until he's dropped crotch first across the top rope, and then Bulldog clotheslines Fatu out to the floor. Match continues. The Bulldog then gets heat on Fatu. Cornette even chokes Fatu with the tennis racket. And then out come the Samoan Gangsta Party, Steve. It's Sweet Sammy the Silk, that's Samu, and Big Maddie Smalls, that's Rosie. So Samu, the former head shrinker, partner Fatu in dreadlocks, and the future Rosie of 3 Minute Warning and then the superhero in training and things. So it's Samu and Rosie out here trying to sell crack to the crowd, Steve. As they call them Fatu's family members are out here. They're also at the same exact time working in ECW on TV, mind you, as the Samoan Gangsta Party feuding with the Gangstas, New Jack and Mustafa, trying to drive over New Jack's skull with a car. And this is going on in my TV right now. This is reality, and my mind is blown as the match goes on. These guys, they are fucking drug dealers, which makes me think one of two things. Why is Razor Ramon gone? Perfect time for Razor to work with these guys. Or did they run Razor off? Was he on the wrong corner? Is that why Razor's gone now? Because the Samoan Gangsta Party have arrived. What interesting timing. As we go into a commercial break, we come back. The British Bulldog misses a leg drop. Fatu then hulks up. Hits the running diamond cutter, which Fatu's been working on lately. He's been doing the diamond cutter. Jim Cornette tries to distract, but Bulldog runs into Jimmy. Bulldog and Cornette collide, and Bulldog still mounts to come back and nails Fatu with an inside-out clothesline and the running power slam. Bulldog picks up the win in 9 minutes. Post-match, after Bulldog picks up the win, Fatu leaves. He runs into his former partner Samu, which they don't sell as such, and Big Matty Smalls, the Samoan Gangsta Party, in the aisleway. They're either trying to sell him crack or get him to come back and work on the corners with them in San Francisco. Either way, Fatu's having none of it, man. He's trying to make a difference here in the WWF.
I wish they would have finished this or did something.
I would have liked to have seen where it went. I don't know that I wish they would have, but I would have liked to have seen where it went, that's for sure.
Hey, man, I would love to have seen Samu versus Fatu. I'm sure that would have been pretty good. But no, I didn't mind it. The match was decent. I like how Bulldog was kind of switching up, showing some personality by mocking like Shawn Michaels every time he did something.
Right.
He did like the pose, and he was flexing and blowing kisses to people and kissing his arms and things like that. So it's like he was showing some personality that we haven't seen yet from him. And the match was decent. I mean, it wasn't bad. Fatu had some nice spots.
Solid TV match, yeah.
And Bulldog looked good, and I think that's what you want when he's about to go for the title. So, and then obviously with the Samoan Gangster Party showing up, they tease something, but we never get it. Yeah, all in all, decent segment. Good stuff.
Yeah, this might be the only Samoan Gangsta Party segment we see on Raw. I know they pop up on Superstars a couple times, and then they're just gone. We never see a follow-up to this story whatsoever. Even back then, I knew that was Samu. And I'm sitting there like, 2 years ago, these guys were fucking head shrinkers, bro. Now one dude's like trying to make a difference. The other dude's trying to sell crack. This ruins wrestling for me, Steve. Yeah, I'm old enough to drive a car now, but it still ruins wrestling for me, Steve. Damn it.
I know they were in ECW too.
Right.
Were they done after their ECW run, like these two together?
Yeah, I don't know that they ever did anything ever again. I don't remember seeing Samu on anything after that, or Rosie until, 3 Minute Warning. I know he went on, did whatever they did, but it's mostly just indies, I think, after that for them too.
I didn't know if they took the Gangster Party to another, probably indie or something.
Right. We move on with the show. It's the Tag Team Champions, Body Donnas with Sunny in their corner, taking on Techno Team 2000. Coming back for like a year hiatus, it seems like. Travis and Troy, that's Eric Watts and Chad Fortune. You guys might remember Eric Watts is the son of Cowboy Bill Watts. Chad Fortune would go on to become the Kiss Demon in WCW, Steve.
I was wondering who that one was. I knew Eric Watts. I seen him. You could pick him out, but I didn't know who the other guy was. But yeah, good to know.
Good to know. Get stuck in a fucking casket trying to come out on live Nitro or Thunder or whatever that was at some point. Years away, but it'll happen eventually here. Anywho, we get video clips from Superstars. Remember, the Godwins are going to wrestle the Rockers in a rematch for number 1 contenders. We see Sonny distracting Phineas yet again, costing the Godwins a match. The Rockers, the new and improved Rockers, become the number 1 contenders. I don't even know what happens with that. I can't wait to get to that point because I don't remember it all. As this match is going on between the Body Donnas and Techno Team 2000, Harvey Whippleman, of all people, comes ringside and starts taking notes on the referees and officials. Eric Watts, who I believe is Troy, does a nice-looking assisted Stinger splash. I wrote, holy shit, he did a wrestling move. As we go into commercial, we come back. The Rockers are watching in the back, watching the Body Donnas. They got a tag team title match coming up here pretty soon. The Donnas get the heat on Eric Watts, but Watts gets the hot tag to Chad Fortune, Travis, if you will. But there's illegal shenanigans going on. Skip goes up top, hits the top rope Rana, and Zip comes flying off with a double axe drop, I wrote, because just too far away for whatever he's going for. It was very sloppy. No matter what, the Body Donnas pick up the win over Techno Team 2000 in 8 minutes.
That assisted Stinger splash was really cool. It actually connected pretty nicely. He got over him, so that's pretty cool. This wasn't a bad match. It was just kind of there, but it wasn't bad at all to me.
Yeah, I have pity on Eric Watts for, how he got into the business, and it just kind of screwed him from there moving forward. Obviously, Chad Fortune made a few bucks in WCW.
I will say, I watched some TNA, like the pay-per-view years or the weekly years.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoyed Eric Watts when he came in and kind of was the commissioner and stuff in there.
Yeah, from my understanding, that was like, he really, did a really good job. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, he was cutting some good promos, and then all of a sudden, I think obviously Russo was booking, and he gets put in a shit situation with Goldilocks, who that was bad. It started off really good for him, and I think he was over, and he did his role well, but then the wheels fell off because
I'm not really sure what happened here in the WWF other than the gimmick sucked, and they looked very awkward at their size in these silly costumes. But they came in, they worked a couple months as a real team, if you will, in the summer, late spring, early summer of '95. They disappeared for almost a year, and now that guys are getting injured and shit, all of a sudden they're back here in the WWF here for a few weeks tops here right now in the WWF. So it's unfortunate, but this is pretty much the end that we see of Techno Team 2000, the best I can remember.
It almost feels like Watts needs to get that Goldust treatment where he gets far away from what his dad was or what
right.
You would expect him to be with who his dad is.
Right.
But he never got that opportunity. TNA maybe a little bit, but yeah, it's unfortunate for him.
Show goes on. Jim Ross, by God, interviews Vader and Jim Cornette. Yokozuna will make his return at In Your House to challenge Vader one-on-one after the broken leg Yoko suffered from Vader not that long ago. Cornette says the leg of Yokozuna will not hold up underneath all that weight. So he's saying Yoko might have healed from the injury, but that weight is just not going to allow it to continue Yoko to wrestle as the same as he was before the injury. Vader has Duke the Dumpster Droese next week. Corny says, if it's time to take out the trash, then out goes the dumpster. I'm sure that's probably true. We haven't gotten there yet, but Duke the Dumpster Droese scheduled to take on Vader next week on Monday Night Raw. As we close this episode of Raw, it's The Undertaker. What a match on paper, looking at the names. The Undertaker taking on Owen Hart, also with Jim Cornette in his corner, and Goldust on commentary with a gold microphone, Steve. So, for absolutely no reason, Goldust randomly in a feud out of nowhere with The Undertaker during the middle of the Mankind Undertaker feud. This just felt force-fed. It really didn't make any sense to me, but we learned that it's Goldust versus The Undertaker in a casket match at In Your House for no apparent reason as far as I'm concerned. I couldn't figure out why there's a casket match going on between Goldust and Undertaker. There's just no story there. Goldie leaves commentary after he finds out that he's wrestling The Undertaker in a casket match. Or does he? It seems like a ploy. Goldust doesn't leave as Taker dominates Owen Hart. Goldust gets up into the commercial break to taunt The Undertaker. Back from break, Goldust distracts Taker while Owen takes over and finally gets heat on the dead man. Goldust then stalks Paul Bearer at ringside. I can only describe this as awesome and weird at the same time, Steve, as Goldust gooses Paul Bearer, grabs his ass, and even Paul Bearer is so taken back by it that he runs away from ringside. He leaves ringside, heads to the back because he's had his ass grabbed. Paul Bearer has had his ass grabbed. And I wrote, what a homophobe. Could you imagine Paul Bearer, a homophobe?
I doubt it.
He represents death, and he's worried about sexuality. It was kind of weird. A lot of weird shit going on in this match.
Vince Russo.
And poor Owen in the middle of all of it has nothing to do with any of this shit, by the way. He's like the odd man out.
If this is Russo's entry, you got to do well on this or you're not getting the job type deal. And then he goes to Vince McMahon and is like,
bro,
how about we have Goldust pinch their ass?
Bro.
Oh, that's good shit, pal.
Bro.
All right, bro, I got this. So he does it, and Vince is probably dying inside seeing Paul Bearer run away after he got his ass pinched. Wow.
So as the match goes on, Owen tries for the sharpshooter, but Undertaker grabs Owen by the throat, chokes his way out before Owen can apply the hold. Owen goes out to the floor. Goldust helps Owen back to the ring by grabbing his ass. More bro.
Yeah.
And so Owen back in the ring, that distracts Owen Hart, who turns around and is like, did you just grab my ass? To which he turns around into the tombstone pile driver. Undertaker pins Owen in 8 minutes. Post-match, Goldust taunts the Undertaker, but then gets a little scared, tries to leave ringside, but runs into Paul Bearer is back out with a golden casket, complete with a Hollywood Walk of Fame star with the word Goldust inside on top. Goldust becomes scared. He and Marlena retreat ringside. So there's just this random casket match with Goldust and The Undertaker, which has no build whatsoever, but it's happening all of a sudden now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if Vince
No.
mentioned something. Like,
Nope.
I thought at the beginning of the commentary when Goldust sat down, like he messed with The Undertaker or did something. I think Vince tried to sell, but I can't remember what was said. But I don't.
You grabbed his dead balls.
Yeah.
Sure.
I will say Goldust during the match started fantasizing about his cold body midway. So I'm wondering if that's what they used to sell it. But
Necro shit, yeah.
For no reason.
Necro.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the match was good. It just sucks. Like you see Taker and Owen on paper, and it's like, man, that'd be cool. But there's just a lot of shenanigans going on outside of just their match.
Off the top of my head, that's the only time I can remember them wrestling. I mean, this is the outcome.
It's definitely possible.
I mean, Goldust is grabbing Paul Bearer's ass. He's grabbing Owen's ass. Owen's doing the job.
He's talking about rubbing up on Undertaker's cold body and getting goosebumps thinking about it and all that stuff. So it's just it was just a match. Yeah, it's kind of what he was doing. But if it was just a match where the focus was on them, it'd been pretty good. But for what we got, it wasn't bad for TV.
Segment of the night, was it Mark Miro? Wow, we can all be back. Wow, it was a 1 hour show and it feels like it was forever ago. Mark Miro versus the 1-2-3 Kid, Undertaker versus Owen, the attempted drug deal that didn't go down after the Fatu match. What was your favorite segment of this show?
I do love the Samoan Gangster Party, but no, I had to go with Mark Miro and the Kid. I seen that opening. I was like, okay, this is gonna be good. So when you see names like that, you just kind of pay attention more than you normally would.
Yeah.
Like Body Down is a techno team. I'm not really paying much attention. But you see Kid Mero, especially Mero now, he's not at the point where he's kind of melded in a little bit. So I was interested in seeing this. And so that was my favorite part. It was a really good match. Nice back and forth. But the show itself had a lot of good action for pretty much the whole show. It wasn't a bad show at all.
No, I felt like compared to last week's episode, this was definitely a much better episode wrestling-wise. And I got to go with you. Mero and Kid was the best thing on the show. Solid match. Yeah. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. The rest of it, whatever. And I'm down with you, too. I loved seeing Samu trying to sell crack. So that was fun. But at the same time, I got to go with Mero over the Kid and the opener as far as segment of the week, which it needs to change if we're going to compete with WCW moving forward. However, the ratings are in. And for this week, the WWF drew the second highest Raw rating in history. On May 6th, yes, Samu selling crack drew the second highest rating in Raw history. With the WWF doing a 4.1 rating and a 5.2 share for The Undertaker versus Owen, the Shawn Michaels scandal storyline, and the Samoan Gangster Party slanging crack, slanging rocks in the aisleway. That's right. WCW Nitro does a 1.9. Raw 4.1, Nitro 1.9. You got to remember, you got to put this in context though, Steve. Nitro's coming on at 7 p.m. at this point. Raw's still coming on at 8:57 or whatever. Whatever they were doing. Something nonsensical like that. So Nitro doing the 7 p.m. thing, they're doing less than half of what Raw is. That'll change very soon and for 83 weeks, by the way, I should mention. But for right now, Raw stomping Nitro with these 7 p.m. shows with the NBA playoffs. So Nitro does do a 1.1 rating on the replay, which is notable because that's pretty much what they always do on the replay. So the replay is not changing. It's just the initial live version based on when it's airing.
So is the replay you have Nitro, a basketball game, and then
Nitro.
The Nitro. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not surprising at all. That's not surprising at all. The ratings there. What's weird is the weirdest part of all of it is the fact that when they're head to head, their numbers are way better. But I know the time change, but come on, that had been promoted. There's probably commercials running on TNT all the time. They're probably talking about during basketball games, hey, Nitro's on at 7 this week. So I'm sure they're getting it out there. So
it's just 7's not an ideal time to be on TV, period.
I agree, but I mean, it's just, I'm pretty sure, I don't remember these Nitros like as if they were yesterday, but I was probably pretty pumped that I could watch Nitro at 7 and then be able to watch Raw in its entirety at 9.
Like I said, I remember this era very fondly, but I also remember missing last week's Nitro because it was on at 7 and I just didn't realize it and I wasn't paying attention enough to the time, and I was like, where the fuck's Nitro? So it does happen to even the biggest wrestling fans, because I was a huge wrestling fan.
Yeah. But like, it only happened that one time. I'm sure you tuned in this week at 7 to be ready.
Well, it's very likely I did.
But like, it went down from the first week to the second. So you figure by the second week, you'd at least have a pretty good idea that we're starting at 7 instead of 9. So,
well, no matter what, it doesn't take long for Nitro to come back.
Right. And my other takeaway was, I wonder if this gave Vince and them like a false sense of security. Like, oh, look, we're kicking their ass.
Pal.
And then
I don't know that Vince is looking at it. I still feel like Vince is not looking at this like that at this point. I don't know. That's my opinion. I just don't think it's like that yet.
I agree with you, because just he's not making reactionary decisions. He's not in panic mode yet. Like, you could tell he's just going with what he had on paper 2 months ago. Like, this is what he wants to do, and filling in for injuries and whatnot. So he's clearly not just making decisions based off a whim because Nitro's kicking their ass. But they're probably feeling pretty good after this. But
well, yeah, I mean, Meltzer points out that the shows are not head to head right now. Nitro at 7, Raw at 9. But it still was the biggest margin of victory as far as ratings go for Raw at this point, 4.1, 1.9 or whatever. Also, the WCW slot switch is during the all-important May sweeps, which is huge. May sweeps that's your go home. That's when that's one of the biggest sweeps of the year is your May sweeps. So Nitro's kind of in a crap situation as far as when they're airing right now. But we'll talk about the real winner here. Is it WWF or is it WCW? Raw had a solid wrestling show throughout. Nitro had a Nitro show throughout.
I put on my notes here, this was a tough one because I thought both shows were really good. They were even. It felt like an even week. They had some good action, nice continuation of the stories leading into Slamboree. You had Savage snapping off. But I thought Raw had like 3 or 4 solid matches.
Yeah.
And they started their build towards the next In Your House. So we got some matches already. Yoko and Vader, Taker and Gold Dust, Bulldog and Shawn. So they're really building towards that next In Your House. I was like, it's a wash, but if I had to pick, I would go with Raw. I just like the matches a little bit better there. Because I think Mero and Kid kind of cancel out Malenko. Like, they cancel each other out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that leaves me Undertaker and Owen, which I would take that all day over Giant and Duggan. And then Bulldog and Fatu is about similar to Sting and Regal. So it was a wash. It was a really, really good week of TV for both companies, I think.
Yeah, and I'll agree. I think both shows had solid TV wrestling matches on them. They were both solid TV programs, period. So I will slightly lean towards Raw myself as well. I felt like overall it probably had a little bit more polished programming than Nitro did. Nitro, had that little bit of all over the place kind of shit at times where I'm kind of questioning, where are you going exactly? Do you know? Whereas Raw was just more polished overall. So I'm going to go with Raw in that respect. And hey, man, Samu's slinging rocks. So, I mean,
that's right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit anyway, especially in that era. Like, I mean, God.
I love it.
Good times.
This is the only time we can talk about it. So
yeah, because they disappear and we never see them again. So yeah, we're gonna talk about
as much as we can.
gotta enjoy it. But I'll it's a slight lean towards Raw, just because I felt it was a more polished television program. But either show was really good, solid. I mean, just typical TV wrestling. If people our age might know what that means, I don't know if they do nowadays or not. I have no clue, but it was good for wrestling, for TV wrestling. that week. We were very lucky no matter which show we watched. So we're very good.
We got to watch both of them because they were on at different times.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, we'll just ignore the ex-wife of a former pro wrestler. We'll just ignore that happening.
Yeah, I just kind of
that's probably the
ground
worst
those
thing.
segments there. Yeah. I just kind of didn't really pay attention to the Bulldog Sean storyline. Like, it might have been the first storyline in the history of wrestling where I just kind of, and I'm not saying other ones weren't just as shitty or even worse at times. I'm sure they might have been, but during this storyline, I would just stare at the ground when it was airing.
Yeah.
I would just go, all right, can we just, like, when this ends, can I look up and watch them wrestle? Because that's what I want to get to. Like, this is so lame. Oh, he's a woman, he's a womanizer. And it's cool in ECW, if Rick Rude's picking Francine up in a 69 and eating her out while he's walking her backstage. I mean, it's a different context of life, I guess. But here in the WWF, it's like, Shawn Michaels ruined my family. It's like,
oh my God.
this is,
we're just like, ECW, you can molest somebody. And
you can do whatever you want because you're Rick Rude too. I mean, Francine's panties were a famous segment every week. So, hey, Francine, she was cool with that.
Not with that. No, absolutely not. She still gets hot over that. So, my friend forewarned me. There's two things you don't talk about. Tommy Dreamer pulling down her dress and Rick Rude taking advantage, and I didn't bring it up. So,
all right.
she did not appreciate that, and she was not a fan of it. So yeah.
Could have fooled the TV cameras, but it is what it is.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, Rick Rude.
God love you, Rick Rude. It takes balls to do that on camera.
It takes ego to do that on camera. Back then, it didn't take a whole lot. You could do whatever you wanted back then, but different world.
Just go down on a woman on camera in front of 10,000 people or 2,000 people, I should say. It's ECW, and we don't even edit it out on the tape. We just leave it on for.
Let's just air this shit on TV. Let's just do this, Joey Styles, and you just commentate right over it.
Oh my God!
Yeah. Good stuff. Good time. EC-Dub. All right.
On that note.
On that note, that's another year and another promotion right now. We're in the Monday Night War. We're really getting deep in the Monday Night War. We're a couple of weeks away on the Monday Warfare show from getting into 2-hour episodes of Monday Nitro, at which point the episodes of Monday Warfare will become 1 week episodes. So we'll be doing 1 week of Raw, 1 week of Nitro at the time to give the proper amount of time to just kind of go over all the news and everything going on with the upcoming NWO and all those good things. But for right now, we're sticking with the 2 hours slot, and we're doing the Patreon show, patreon.com/WrestleCopia. Slamboree coming up, WrestleMania in the books, In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies. So all that good stuff, and we're going to keep going with that. We're going to talk Bash at the Beach, Great American Bash, as they evolve, and then King of the Ring and everything so on with the WWF as well. Steve, I appreciate you being here for Monday Warfare. More news next week, guys. We're going to talk more about the Ric Flair, Randy Savage storyline. We're also going to talk in depth about the nonsense and childish behavior, Steve, during the recent WWF European tour, mostly involving the Clique, if you can imagine that.
I'm shocked.
Why Sonny was sent home early.
Huh. Uh-huh.
You can only imagine.
It's getting deep. Uh-huh.
To quote the Macho Man, uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. So,
Lord.
Sonny said it was
we got
getting
something
deep.
to look forward to next week.
Yeah, Sonny said it was getting deep too. So,
shocker there.
Anywho, for you OnlyFans out there, we will be back next week. More Monday Warfare on the way, Steve. We're in May 1996. We're headed to 2-hour Nitros. The NWO right around the corner. It's going to be a fun time in the history of professional wrestling. Business going to take off. So we will be back very soon. More Monday Warfare on the way. Steve, thank you so much for joining me again for another edition of the show.
Absolutely, man. It was a blast. I had fun.
Had a great time, guys, and we'll be back again. Like I said, stay tuned for more Monday Warfare. Please go check out all those pay-per-views, the watch-along series on Patreon, $5 all access tier. We had so much fun doing all those shows. Lots of great new content there. You guys are not going to want to miss that out. And more 1993 stuff coming your way, too, as part of the Grenade, the WWF. So we'll be back there soon again. And, guys, please stay tuned. More Monday Warfare on the way. Thanks again, Ray Russell, Steve Eckstat saying see ya next time here on Monday Warfare, The Battles Within.